How's it going, folks? Welcome to another fun at-home table read. Tonight we are jumping into easily one of my favorite movies of all time, especially with the spooky season, John Carpenter's The Thing. We're going to get right into this one because I can't wait to see how it's going to play out. So, our players for tonight.
Hello, my name is George, and I'll be doing the action description.
I'm Logan. I'll be reading McCready.
I'm Randy. I'm going to be reading Choules.
Scott, and I'll be reading Dr. Copper.
Hi, I'm Mary, and I will be reading Garry.
I'm Angi, and I'm reading Blair.
I'm Travis, and I'll be reading Clark.
And I'm Rudy, and I will be playing Palmer.
All right, well, George, take us away.
All right, The Thing by Bill Lancaster from the story Who Goes There by Don A. Stewart. Fade in, a starry blackness. From out of the billions, the smallest of specks drives slowly forward. It closes, getting larger, its features becoming more identifiable. A vessel, flip-flopping out of control, its stern roaring with flame. It passes, its blue fire surging into screen. The Thing. A thundering fade to, a blind and feral whiteness. Glacial desert, gusts of snow, superimpose Antarctica, 1982, winter. A sound, loud and strident. A helicopter streaks across frame. It travels precariously close to the ground, its chassis battered and swayed by the wind. Interior copter. Red dials beam on the faces of two men. One carries a rifle and searches the horizon with binoculars. The other pilots. Their unkempt faces, their blazing eyes notate a wildness. They bark at each other in some Scandinavian tongue. Two men arguing like mad and desperate children. The man with the binoculars sights something. Exterior horizon, binoculars point of view, a dog. It turns and snarls at the craft some hundred yards to its rear, then whirls and gallops off. A gun blast kicks up snow at its heels. Interior copter. Another blast of rifle fire as the man takes issue with his prey. The pilot slams a fist into his gunman friend and implores for better aim. The craft swoops lower and the engine is put into full throttle. Exterior hill, the dog, running feverishly up and over a hill of ice. A weather-beaten wooden sign sticks up on the other side. U.S. National Science Foundation, Outpost Number 31. A rifle blast kicks up more snow. Exterior compound of U.S. Compost 31. A large, almost snow-covered building. Not far from that, a tall meteorological balloon tower. A scattering of several small shacks at varying distances from the main compound. The smaller hovels are connected by wooden planked walkways and steadying ropes. Multicolored pennants stick out of the snow, marking pathways and directions to outdoor experiments. A tractor and two helicopters sit idle, covered with mounds of continuously mounting snow. Two men, Norris and Bennings, standing some 30 yards from the main building, are in the process of letting up a large red balloon. Choules, a hefty black man, is 20 yards away tinkering with a snowmobile. Their beards are caked with ice. It's winter and it's harsh. The faint sound of the copter turns their attention. The copter flying even lower now. The man with the gun leans dangerously outside and fires away at the dog as it nears the outpost. The men outside the compound look to one another, incredulous. The copter is much too low now, and chastised by the wind, attempts a high-speed landing directly on the heels of the sprinting dog. It bounces violently on the hard-packed surface, once, twice, passing the dog. A third bounce sends it skidding. It flips, its blades snapping off like toothpicks. It lands belly up, soundless except for the whine of its engine. The man with the gun rolls out before the explosion. Interior main compound. The half a dozen men, playing cards, monitoring equipment, listening to music, spring to their feet, startled. Exterior compound. The dog reaches Norris and Bennings as they awkwardly wade through the snow toward the downed copter. The survivor of the crash, his eyes crazed with determination, struggles to his feet. Heedless of his companion, he double times his way to the men and the dog. He reloads his gun and bellows in his Scandinavian tongue. Norris and Bennings have no idea what he's saying. The survivor waves his arms as if shooing them off, screaming as he does so, his face now caked with blood. The two men are bewildered. The dog jumps up, licking and pawing them, imploring for safety. Blam! The visitor fires. The men jump back in disbelief.
What the fuck?
Blam! Blam! The crazed visitor screams and fires as he stalks after them. His countenance ablaze, mad. Ice and snow kick up about the terrified Americans. A bullet smacks into the dog's hip, sending it skidding and howling in pain. Choules, the black man by the snowmobile, takes cover, diving behind his machine. Bennings is hit. Norris pulls, drags him back toward the compound. The dog crawls along beside them. The intruder is relentless in his assail. He runs, screaming, firing, screaming, reloading, and firing. Interior compound. Total confusion. Some watch helplessly through the small, fogged-up and translucent windows. Others tried to immobilize, grabbing for their heavy jackets. close on a 357 Magnum as it efficiently breaks through a window pane and into the cold. A steady hand grips it firmly. The Scandinavian, getting closer. Kablam! Suddenly his head jerks back. He falls to his knees and then face down into the snow. Norris and Bennings stare blankly but relievedly at the fallen man. The dog whimpers in pain. Childs pokes his head out from under the snowmobile. Interior main compound, rec room. The rumbling of voices fades. The men adjust their eyes to Station Manager Garry. As he extracts his gun from the broken window, relieves it of its spent shell, and puts it away. Cut 2, exterior burning copter. Several men spray snow on the burning wreckage. There is no hope for the pilot. Cut 2, interior compound, close on the pallid face of the Scandinavian intruder. A neat round hole is set in the middle of his forehead. Station Manager Garry holds up something akin to an ID.
Norwegian. Jans Bolin.
Fuchs, a young and sensitive-looking biologist, stands closest to the large area map of Antarctica. Several men sit and stand around viewing the body that lies on 2 brought-together card tables.
Gotta be from the Norwegian camp.
How far is that?
About 80 kilos southwest.
That far?
Garry directs his attention to Childs, the large black man who's been working on the snowmobile. Next to him sits Norris, the rugged-looking 40-ish geophysicist who was one of the men being shot at.
You catch anything he was saying?
Am I starting to look Norwegian to you, Bonna?
Garry motions inquiringly to Norris.
Yeah, I caught what he wanted, the better part of my ass to come apart.
Interior infirmary. Dr. Copper, mid-40s, works on the outstretched leg of Bennings, the meteorologist. Clark, the dog handler, is mending the hip of the wounded dog off in the corner. Bennings lets out with an ouch.
Don't ouch me. 2 stitches. Just grazed you.
He helps a shaken Bennings up off the table.
What in the hell were they doing? Flying that low, shooting at a dog, at us?
Stir crazy. Cabin fever. Who knows?
The dog yelps and whimpers as Clark tries to calm him.
Here a while. She's pretty.
Interior radio room. Blair, senior biologist, 50, balding, leans against the entrance door. He looks on as the young, bored-looking radio operator, Sanchez, attends to his equipment. Bursts of static.
It's no-go.
Well, get somebody, anybody. We've got to report this mess.
Look! I haven't been able to reach shit in 2 weeks. Doubt if anybody's talked to anybody on the whole continent.
Interior hallway. Nauls, the cook, glides along on his roller skates down one of the many narrow hallways that connect the various compartments of the main compound. He's black, a little mischievous, about 22. He comes to a flashy skidding stop at one of the entrances to the rec room area, where the men are gathered with the dead Norwegian. Maybe we're at war with Norway. Palmer, a spacey 27-year-old, novice pilot and mechanic, grins as he lights a joint. He directs a remark to Station Manager Garry.
Was wondering when El Capitan was going to get a chance to use his pop gun.
Garry rebukes him with a stern look and then turns to Fuchs.
How long have you been stationed there?
Says here about 8 weeks.
Dr. Copper enters the room. Bennings is limping after him slightly.
That's not enough time for guys to go bonkers.
That's bullshit, Bwana, sweetheart. 5 minutes is enough to put a man over down here.
Damn straight.
I mean, Palm has been the way he is since the first day. Palmer smiles and flips the cook the bird.
How many in their party?
Started with 6. There'd be 4 others left.
How do you know?
The men's attention turns to Copper.
Guys as crazy as that could have done a lot of damage to their own before they got to us.
Nothing we can do about that.
Yes, there is. I'd like to go up.
In this weather?
Bennings?
Winds are gonna let up a tad next couple hours.
A tad?
Can't condone it much myself, but it is a short haul. Hour there, hour back.
Garry still does not much like the idea. Palmer takes another hit off his joint.
Doc, I'll give you the lift if.
Forget it, Palmer. Doc, you're a pain in the ass. Norris, go get McReady.
Slight laughter from some of the men.
McReady ain't going nowhere. Bunkered in till spring. Just go get him. Anyway, he's probably ripped.
Exterior, U.S. Outpost 31. Norris, bundled in his 65 pounds of clothing, exits the main compound. He walks the prefab wooden planks up the precipice. His destination is some 100 yards up the slope to a shack. He grabs onto the steadying ropes and pulls himself against the wind and blowing sleet. Interior, McCready's shack, close on ice cubes, being dumped into a glass, followed by the pouring of whiskey. An electronic voice is heard. Bishop to night 4. McCready takes a sip of his drink, makes his way over to his electronic chess game. A large Mexican sombrero hangs on his back. He's tall, about 35. His shack is sparse but unkempt. A few centerfolds on the wall are interspersed by an occasional poster of some Mediterranean or South American paradise. The chess game is of larger than normal size. The pieces move automatically with the press of a button. He sits down and chuckles over his opponent's bad move.
Poor little son of a bitch. You're starting to lose it, aren't you?
He confidently taps out his move. His companion's response is immediate. Pawn takes queen at knight 4. McCready's grin slowly fades as he examines the board. There is a pounding at his door. McCready broods for a bit, heedless of his visitor, and makes his next move. Rook to knight 6. Check. More impatient pounding. McCready glares at his opponent for a beat. He bends forward, opens up a flap containing the chess game's circuitry, and pours in his drink. There ensues a snapping, popping sound as smoke and sparks rise from the machine, followed by a flush of chess gibberish. McCready gets up from his seat, mumbling on his way to the door.
Cheating bastard.
He opens the door. Norris steps in, followed by a flurry of snow and wind.
You jerking off or just pissed?
You got any more of these electronic chess things down in supply?
Get your gear on.
What for?
Exterior outpost. One of the grounded choppers is being readied for takeoff. Childs holds a huge industrial torch to the engine, warming it up. Interior main compound corridor. Garry, Bennings, Dr. Copper, Palmer, and McCready wind their way through the slender corridors on their way to the chopper. Dr. Copper carries a satchel of medical supplies. McCready, going over his flight chart, looks mad as hell. The dialogue overlaps.
Craziness.
Quit the griping, McCready.
It's going to be insane.
Sooner you're there, sooner you're back.
It's against regulations to go up this time of year.
Screw regulations. 4 guys could be crawling around on their bellies out there.
So, I don't want to end up crawling around with them when we go down.
Look, if you're going to keep bitching, McCready, Palmer's offered to take him up.
What are you talking? He's 2 months in training on those choppers.
4.
What is it out there? Anyway, 45 knots?
16.
The horse you rode in on 16 for how long? You can't predict this time of year.
Interior, exterior chopper. Dr. Copper sits to McCready, who is at the controls. McCready tightens the string of his sombrero around his neck and starts up its choking engine. McCready fights violently with the controls as he struggles to get the craft into the air. It finally rights itself and moves up and off into the gray-white sky. Interior main compound. A couple of the men mingle in the area. Clark, the dog handler, looks out the window.
Papa?
The dog, a large bandage on his hip, wades through the room. Under tables, past men's legs. It hobbles slightly. No one takes notice. Cut to exterior of the chopper. It moves over a ridge of ice. Columns of smoke can be seen rising ominously from a quarter-mile off. Interior chopper, point of view. As they near, the smoke looms thicker. A black tar-like gush, billowing up into the gray sky from the whiteness below. Exterior Norwegian camp. Smoke climbs upward in the foreground. McCready sets his craft down. Pull back to reveal the camp itself, resembling the aftermath of a western fort sacked and ravaged by Indians. Small fires and debris are strewn everywhere. The prefab administration building exposes gaping holes. Smoke rises from the almost entirely snow-buried quinset huts. Embers swirl in every direction. Interior chopper. The 2 men look at each other in silence. They get out. Close on a large makeshift funeral pyre, smoldering to a close. A hastily conceived crematorium. Wood, books, furniture, tires, anything that will burn has been mixed together with the charred remains of several dogs and the body of a man. Curious mounds of a melted and blackened goo are heaped within the mess. A small can of gasoline lies nearby. a large oil drum not far off. MacCready and Copper, their faces ashen as they take in this grotesque sight. MacCready turns to view the Norwegian compound. He then exchanges a look with Copper. MacCready heads back to the chopper. At the chopper, MacCready unhinges the shotgun that is latched to the panel behind the seats. Exterior of the main building, the door. MacCready and Dr. Copper stand hesitantly amidst the wisps of snow and embers. MacCready tries the door. It's unlocked. He slowly pushes it open with his gun. A creaking, a long, pitch-black corridor. Copper shines a flashlight.
Anybody there?
No answer, just wind. They exchange a look and enter. Interior, narrow corridor. The two men move slowly. It's dank and cold, their breath bleeding like exhaust. A soft, steady wind howls overhead. The flashlight is not much help. Further down, they hear a faint hissing sound. As they get closer, it more resembles static. The flashlight finds a door at the end of the corridor. The sputtering static comes from within. The face of the door has been shredded. An axe sticks out from its middle. MacCready wrenches out the axe. There's blood on it. The men acknowledge this for a beat. MacCready tries the knob. It opens slightly. Something is blocking it from the other side.
Anybody in there?
Nothing.
We're Americans.
Nothing.
Come to help you.
MacCready pushes against the door.
Give me a hand.
They push, shove, grunt. The door gives a bit. Finally more. It widens enough for MacCready to see that a large, computer-like machine is blocking their path. MacCready wedges in and shines the flashlight. It's the communications room. Holes in its roof have allowed in the freezing cold. The flashlight exposes the back of the radio chair. One more nudge allows them into the room. A beat as they catch their breath. MacCready spots a Coleman lantern. He lights it with a match, holds it up. The brighter light exposes the top of a man's head sitting in the radio chair.
Hey, Sweden, you okay?
The chair rocks slightly with the gentle breeze. They inch closer. A yard from the chair, MacCready stops the doctor. He pokes his gun at the chair's back.
Sweden.
Dr. Copper spots something. From the man's wrist on the armrest, he follows a long, yarn-thick red line ending in a pool of frozen blood on the floor. The two men step around the chair. The Norwegian stares up in blanched death, a gaping black hole for a mouth, his throat and wrists slit, an old-fashioned straight razor in his lap. MacCready turns off the hissing radio and marches to the other door. It's locked and barricaded.
My God. What in the hell happened here?
Just come on, Copper.
The two men free a machine-like obstacle from the other exit. MacCready opens the lock and pushes the door open. More blackness, stronger wind. Copper holds the lantern high as they make their way down a row of wooden steps and into a cavernous underground causeway.
Hey, Sweden!
They're not Swedish, God damn it! They're Norwegian. A creek.
Whap! Something slaps into the doctor's face from the darkness. The lantern crashes to the ground. The doctor stumbles, falls. MacCready grabs the flashlight and whirls in different directions. A panting beat, silence. Dr. Copper holds up what hit him. A thick centerfold, buffeted by the wind. MacCready takes it.
Region of the month, Doc. Harmless.
MacCready pockets it for further viewing. Interior, the narrowest of corridors. The supporting beams have long since buckled and cracked from the constantly moving ice underneath. The evidence of fire has further weakened the foundations. The wood creaks overhead. Bits of ice and silt trickle down. The two men walk hunched, cautious. MacCready gingerly tries to make his way around a broken and smoldering beam. He brushes it gently, sending a shower of debris from the yawning roof. The two men wait until it subsides, then move on. Further down, MacCready's knee bumps into something along the wall, causing him to stumble slightly. He shines his light on it. An arm is sticking out of a steel door about 3 feet off the ground. The door has been slammed shut. The arm pinned, its fist still gripping a small welding torch, the flame long since gone out.
Shit.
He tries the door, unlocked. It opens. The arm drops to the ground. It had been severed by the force of the slam. Its owner is nowhere to be seen. MacCready, sickened, coughs. Dr. Copper mumbles.
Christ.
They step over the arm and into another slim passageway. Moving along, they come to rest in front of a door with Norwegian lettering on it. MacCready pushes it open with his foot. Dozens of papers fly about, flailed by the holes in the quinset hut-style roof. The place is a wreck. They enter. MacCready surveying the small room with his flashlight.
Laboratory.
Broken beakers, test tubes, a microscope are illuminated. MacCready notices a video camera.
Portable video unit.
Copper makes his way over to the main work table. He shuffles through papers, glancing at the writing.
Anything?
All in Norwegian.
Dr. Copper bends down and begins gathering the papers strewn about the room.
What are you doing?
Could be important work. Might as well bring it back.
It's getting late. Hurry, I'm gonna check the last few rooms.
He exits. Amongst the rubble, Dr. Copper finds a pocket tape recorder and several cassettes. He selects a tape and is about to pop it in when he senses something to his rear. He turns, looks. A beat. Nothing. Interior hallway. MacReady shoves himself into another room. Inside the room, debris and wood flush down on him. The receding ceiling had been blocking the door from above. He brushes his coat and shines the light upwards. The ceiling is a shambles. He then shines the light deeper into the room. Interior Norwegian lab. Dr. Copper is playing the small tape recorder. A casual Norwegian voice drones on as if making notes. He fast forwards. The same casual drone.
Copper, come here!
Interior room. Dr. Copper enters, squeezing in through the door. The wood cracks overhead. More debris comes falling down. Copper dusts himself. MacReady stands before a huge block of ice, 15 feet long, 6 feet wide, 4 feet tall. It is partially melted, but its thawing process has been stopped by the now freezing temperatures within the outpost. Its one curious feature, the middle has been thawed and scuppered out, giving it the appearance of a large bathtub. The two men study it uncomprehendingly. MacReady's gaze turns to a large metal cabinet at his left. He moves for a closer look. Several photographs are pasted to its door, small snapshots of the Norwegians at work and play. He tries to open it, stuck. The partially caved-in ceiling is slightly blocking the top of the door. He tries again, careful not to dislodge the wood and plaster above. Bits of dust float down.
Watch it.
His grip is too strong. It gives suddenly, unexpectedly. The large metal door flies open. Large chunks splash from the ceiling. They come thumping to the floor behind and in front of the open cabinet doors. MacReady coughs and waves away the dust. He peers inside. Nothing much. Some empty shelves, some small scientific gear. His flashlight then locates a large photograph taped to the inside of the cabinet door. It's a picture of 5 Norwegians, arm in arm, all smiles, toasting each other. They're on either side of the frozen block of ice, pridefully displaying it for the camera. The block looks much thicker, its interior opaque. MacReady looks through the block of ice and then back to the photograph. He untapes it, pockets it, and shuts the door. An armless corpse swings into his face from behind the closing door. Dislodged from the ceiling, the body and MacReady go crashing to the floor. Cut 2. Interior U.S. Outpost Recreation Room. The loud beat of Warren Zevon's song, The Werewolves of London, can be heard throughout the compound. The room is empty. Close on a video pong game, its ball of light lazily traveling back and forth. The dog, its tail wagging, its bandage on, walks by. Interior kitchen. Zevon's record is blasting from Nauls' stereo. He skates from the big walk-in freezer and plunks down a large side of beef on the wood-cutting table to thaw. He skates from pot to pan, keeping time with his sounds. He smells, tastes, adds a little something here, a touch there. He clearly enjoys his work. Station manager Garry stops past the open door.
Turn that crap down, Nauls. You can hear it all over camp.
Oui, Buana. Can do. He skates over and turns it down, but not much. Interior communications room. Garry enters and sees that Sanchez has nodded off in front of his receiver. His headgear is still on. Garry walks over and turns up the volume, the static jolting Sanchez awake.
Hey, man.
You reach anybody yet?
We're 1,000 miles from anybody else, man. It's gonna get a hell of a lot worse before it gets better.
Well, stick to it.
Interior compound corridor. An empty hallway, larger than most. Doors to several sleeping quarters on either side. The dog slowly walks through. One of the doors is open up ahead to his left. The dog stops in front of it and looks in. Someone is inside. Inside the small cubicle, a slight portion of a man's back can be seen as he sits bent over a chair, his large shadow displayed on the wall. Back in the corridor, the dog looks up the hall once and casually to the other end. No one. He enters the room. The sound of a man's voice, too indistinct to tell whose, mumbles a "hello, boy," a beat. The sound of a glass breaking, a muffled scuffling. The door is slammed shut from the inside and then silence. Cut to exterior compound. Fuchs, the young biologist, is finishing up his daily jog around the compound. He stops at the end of a long, quinset hut almost completely buried in the snow. The hut is 50 yards long and connects to the main compound. He enters a tunnel from a latch door up top. Interior tunnel. He jogs down the steps, passing the underground dog kennel, and trots toward the compound through the long, narrow tunnel. He passes and waves to Clark, who rolls along a wheelbarrow of dog food. Clark opens the door to the small kennel and serves up the dinner. The dogs, about 7 of them, yelp and bark eagerly. Interior underground passageway near the fuel supply bladders. Older and more rickety than the quarters above. Childs waltzes through, humming, a big smile on his face. He stops at a door with 6 locks on it, different kinds. Combination locks, key locks, etc. He opens each one separately. Interior storage room. Inside are several marijuana plants. Sun lamps beam down on them. Childs inspects them with a wide grin.
How are my brothers and sisters doing today, huh? Doing fine?
He moves over to a tape deck, selects a cassette, grins back at the plants, and turns it on.
Let's say just a nice Al Green for my babies, huh?
He waters them carefully as Al Green sings softly. He hears a panting and turns around to see the dog. His bandage is gone.
You get the hell on out of here.
The dog is shooed off, and Childs turns back grumbling.
Coming in here, going to urinate on my babies.
Interior main compound hallway. Blair, passing through, holding a chart and carrying a rack of test tubes, notices a large bandage on the floor. He picks it up inquiringly. It's mangled and shredded. Interior generator room. Palmer works on the generator. He hears the sound of approaching propeller blades from outside, and then the sound of his toolbox crashing to the floor. He turns to see what caused the ruckus. The dog, who has entered the shed, has jumped on the work table and upended the toolbox in its eagerness to look out of the above window. Palmer curses under his breath and calls out,
Clark, will you kennel this goddamn dog? Hey, Clark!
The dog. It paws at the window and watches as the chopper, carrying McCready and Dr. Copper, fights against the newly arrived heavy winds and lands safely. Interior Station Manager Garry's quarters. Garry, McCready, Dr. Copper, Norris, Bennings, Blair, and his assistant Fuchs are present. The small Norwegian video unit has been set up and its contents are being viewed on a TV screen. Grainy, home movie-ish, no sound. The proceedings are grim. Shots of the Norwegians at work, others of them playing soccer on ice. Generally, the footage is a prosaic record of their day-to-day life. Norris shuffles the bundle of notes Dr. Copper brought back with him.
Seems they were spending a lot of time at a place 4 miles northeast of their camp. And what were they involved in?
McCready, working on the video machine, answers.
A little ice core drilling, some seismology, glaciology. Same old shit we do.
The present footage is a shot of them all naked and probably drunk, holding a sign across their waists as they stand outdoors in super freezing weather.
How much more of this crap is there?
About 9 more hours.
We can't learn anything from this.
Probably right.
McCready turns on the light and shuts off the video machine. He then slides the portable tape deck across the table to Dr. Copper. They exchange a look.
McCready and I were listening to some of these cassettes on the way back. Like you gentlemen hear it.
A Norwegian voice drones on calmly, making verbal notes. Norris shrugs.
What do you want from us?
Just listen.
Dr. Copper fast forwards. The calm voice continues, and then a loud blast followed by a pounding, the sounds of confusion, voices loud, frenetic, men's feet running up and down wooden floorboards, a gurgling, a hissing, screams, and then a screeching. More blasts mixed with the din of wild, carnage-wrought cries, and then more screeching, a screeching unlike anything these men have ever heard. The men look from one another in silence as they listen. Dr. Copper turns it off.
Goes on like that for quite a while. What do you gentlemen make of it?
Could be anything. Men in isolation, some beef that snowballed, got out of hand. Maybe the whole camp got bent. Something they ate? What about food poisoning, Doc?
Dr. Copper taps the tape deck pensively.
Maybe.
He glances at McCready and then back to the others.
There's something else we want you to see.
Interior infirmary. Dr. Copper and McCready begin dumping the heavy contents of a large plastic trash bag onto the slab.
We found this.
Displayed on the slab is what appears to be the corpse of a man, badly charred. What is left of the trousers and shoes of the bottom torso are ripped and split, as if his legs and feet had burst from the inside. His upper body is an almost undecipherable gnarled mass of protoplasmic mush. The head is strangely disfigured and looks larger than normal. It is situated not on the shoulders, but near the abdomen. Tendon-like appendages are wrapped around the carcass and sticking up and out in odd postures. One is wrapped around the body's left leg. The shirt has been ripped and lies shredded in the tar-like mess. The men grimace.
I know he's pretty badly burned, but could fire have done this?
Blair, sickened but fascinated, pokes at the tendon-like things in the tarry goo.
Blair, I'd like you and Fuchs to help me with the autopsies on this one, and the one Garry shot this morning.
Interior rec room later, close on a table hockey game. Foosball. Foosball. Nauls and Clark are going at it hot and heavy. Sanchez sits off in a corner thumbing through an old issue of Photo Play. Bennings, Norris, and Garry are engaged in a card game. Bennings is about to play a card when he feels something under the table. He looks. It's the dog.
Clark, will you put this mutt with the others where he belongs?
Interior lab. Larger than most of the other rooms and well equipped. Dr. Cooper is performing an autopsy on the Norwegian intruder, killed early that morning. Blair sits over his microscope while Fuchs prepares slides. The other body is draped with a sheet, waiting its turn. Dr. Cooper pulls off his gloves.
Nothing wrong with this one, physiologically anyway. Find anything toxic?
No drugs, alcohol, nothing.
Interior tunnel. Clark leads the dog through the long, cold tunnel toward the kennel. A new dressing has been placed on its hip. He unlatches the door to the kennel and leads him in. Interior kennel. About 20 feet long, 5 feet wide, poorly lit, cramped with dogs, some of them sleeping, others pacing around and curious, greet their new companion, sniffing, panting, and rubbing up against him. Clark pats the dog and several others, then leaves, latching the door behind him. Interior sleeping cubicle. Childs lies in his cot watching a small television. The show is a tape of an American TV game show. He has seen this one too many times, extracts the cassette, and injects another game show. Palmer is stretched on the other cot, reading a comic book and smoking a joint. Childs beckons for it and takes a hit. Interior pub. A small area just off the rec room, set up like a bar. McCready is alone, looking over the rest of the videotapes from the Norwegian outpost. Mundane to esoteric chores of Antarctic camp life, he looks bored. Interior lab. Blair, hovering over the microscope, lays in a slide, focuses, and motions for Dr. Copper to take a look. Copper is confused as he examines. He shrugs.
I don't understand.
Fuchs takes the opportunity to look. Blair moves over to the disfigured corpse and indicates one of the fibrous tendon-like appendages.
It's tissue from one of these sinewy rods.
Fuchs is befuddled as he examines.
What in the world kind of cell structure is this?
That's the point.
I don't get you, Blair.
I'm not sure it is any kind of cell structure, biologically speaking.
This really isn't my field, Blair. Let's wrap for the day.
Dr. Copper undoes his lab coat and lays it over a chair as he exits. Blair stares down ominously at the mutilated body. Exterior compound, night. A steady stream of sleep pounds the compound and small surrounding shacks. Interior rec room, vacant. The wall clock reads 4:30. Interior hallway. Sleeping cubicles on either side, the sound of snoring. Interior pub. Bleary-eyed, McCready is in the process of blowing up some strange inflatable object. As he puffs away, he still keeps an eye on the Norwegian videotapes. His balloon begins to take shape. It blossoms into the life-size replica of a full-breasted woman. Something on the tape catches his eye. He rewinds, then starts it forward again. The screen shows the Norwegians on the surface of what appears to be an enormous flat glacier. They are spread out on the ice around a large, odd oval shape, their arms outstretched. It fades to black, and then a Norwegian comes on, mugging childishly in front of the camera, apparently quite pleased with something. The tape fades to black again, and the picture reappears. This time they have marked off the large oval area with flag sticks. Closer shots show 3 of the men digging a deep hole into the ice. There is a small patch of something dark and metallic at the bottom. McCready leans forward, intrigued. The men are now sinking something deep into the ice at various points around the markings. McCready squints and mumbles to himself.
Thermite charges.
The tape jump cuts again, showing a long shot of the markings. No Norwegian in sight. An explosion kicks up the ice, a beat as the ice sprays to the ground. Then the camera appears to shake as the ground beneath it quivers. Another immense explosion follows. An earthquake-like force throws the camera to the ground.
What?
The tape continues, distorted, unviewable, a distinct crack in the lens. McCready lets go of his companion and quickly rewinds. The deflating mannequin is sent sputtering around the room. Interior kennel, night. Most of the dogs are sleeping or lounging. The new dog watches them calmly, silently. He takes several steps towards a group of about 5 dogs and sits upright, completely still. He stares at them, a beat. The dogs are aware of something. They begin to seem a bit confused, uncomfortable. The new dog continues to stare, sitting rigidly, unnaturally still, his eyes dead, lusterless black spheres. Bewildered, a few dogs start to pace, as if sensing something, a portent, a danger, but so odd, they begin a soft, purring growl. The new dog remains a statue. The growling builds. More dogs begin to pace, nervously, faster, encircling, emitting hisses, snarls, the lack of response driving them into a frenzy. Barks, growls, more frenetic pacing, the din escalating. 3 dogs start to close in on the stranger. They attack. The shadow of the new dog against the kennel wall. The shadow suddenly lurches upwards, seeming larger. The kennel roars. Interior pub. McCready is still going over bits of the same footage, fascinated. He hears the far-off clamor of the dogs. Interior Nauls' quarters. He, too, bothered by the noise, tosses and turns in his sleep. Interior Clark's quarters. Clark snores. McCready has entered.
Clark.
No response. McCready nudges him. Clark rolls away annoyed. McCready pinches his snoring nose, cutting off the air. Clark sits up groggy.
Doghound's going nuts. Take care of it.
Interior tunnel. Clark, sleepy and irritated, makes his way down the freezing corridor, the wind sounding loudly overhead. Clark reaches the kennel door. The savage outpouring of noise from within baffles and angers him. He unlatches the door.
What's got into the...
Smack! Just as he opens the door, 2 dogs, as if jettisoned from a cannon, knock him off his feet. Growls, barks, snarls, and a screeching from within. Interior kitchen. McCready is fetching himself a beer. The sound of the far-off screeching. He freezes. A beat. He turns and sprints. His beer can smashes the glass of the fire alarm. He pulls the lever. Interior tunnel. The alarm is blaring throughout the camp. McCready, Garry, and Norris run through the narrow tunnel led by Clark. McCready carries a shotgun. Garry, half-dressed, has his .44. Clark has a fire axe.
I don't know what the hell's in there, but it's weird and pissed off, whatever it is.
Interior hallway. Chaos. Men, half-naked, bounce from their cubicles, pulling on their pants, digging into shoes. Interior Childs' cubicle. Childs is grappling with his belt buckle.
Mac wants the what? That's what he said. Now move.
Bennings is off. Interior tunnel as men approach the locked kennel door. The 2 dogs, thrown into Clark, bark ferociously and scratch at the door, trying to get back in. One is badly bloodied. The fight inside rages on. McCready and Clark brace themselves by the narrow door. Norris and Garry hold back the 2 hysterical dogs. Clark undoes the latch, and he and McCready enter the kennel. The light has been broken, and it's pitch black. McCready snaps on his flashlight. Norris and Garry can't contain their animals, and the dogs burst into the room. They smash into McCready and send him sprawling. Total confusion. The dogs, the men, the screeching, the blackness.
Mac, where are you?
McCready gropes for his flashlight and rights himself. He finds Clark, then shines it around the cramped room, trying to get his bearings. The light finds a mass of dogs in a wild melee in the corner. Barking mixed with hissing, a gurgling, a screeching, dogs being hurled about and then charging back into the fray with a vengeance. The flashlight illuminates parts of something, a dog, but not quite. Impossible to tell. It struggles powerfully. Garry pokes his head into the blackness.
What's going on, damn it?
McCready aims his shotgun at the entire pack.
I shoot.
No, wait.
Clark wades into the pack, grabs the dog's hides, and throws them back. He then wields his axe into the fray, chopping and hacking away at the gurgling, hissing silhouette. From out of nowhere, a large, bristly, arachnid-like leg springs up and wraps around Clark's axe. It sends Clark smashing violently into the wall. Outside, more men running, nearing the kennel, several squeezing in with Garry, trying to get a look. Inside, McCready fires several rounds. A dog is flung at him, knocking him and his flashlight once more to the ground. Garry squeezes in and begins blasting away in the direction of the hissing and screeching. A dog is hit. McCready crawls for his flashlight.
Clark! Where are you, Clark?
Blam, blam. Garry continues firing at the silhouette. Interior tunnel. Childs, huffing and puffing, lugs the huge industrial torch toward the crowded kennel doorway.
What's happening?
Get that torch. Get your ass in here!
Interior kennel. Childs scrunches in, disoriented by the blackness, and bumps into Garry, knocking him off balance.
Where are you?
McCready signals with his flashlight and then points it at the gathering of snarling dogs.
Torch it over there.
The dogs?
Who the dogs? Torch it!
Choules lets loose with a burst of blue flame. A mewing, a screeching. Part of the kennel starts to burn.
We're on fire!
Don't let up, Childs.
Extinguishers!
Childs moves closer, continuing his assault on the hissing, gurgling presence. Men charge into the room and begin spraying dogs and burning walls. Dogs and men choke and cough amidst the smoke and CO2. The screeching lessens, the hissing and gurgling fade. Childs turns off his torch. Interior rec room, the next morning. Those of the men that have gathered exhibit a pale and quiet uneasiness. Blair, in silent awe, stands over the badly burned corpses of 2 interlocking dogs that lie before him on a table. They are connected as if they were one animal, though the one wearing the remnants of Clark's bandage is much larger and appears less dog-like. Its entire torso is cracked and peeled as if its innards were trying to burst out. Odd appendages, recoiled and withered by the flame, are wrapped grotesquely about both bodies. Clark, his eyes set in glassy stare, sits in shock. Nauls comforts him. Child stands nearby, smoking a joint and staring at the floor. Blair, transfixed, continues hovering over the united cadavers, weighing, thinking, a very worried look on his face. The dead bodies of 2 other dogs from the kennel are not far off. Interior infirmary. Fuchs is attending to the shredded bodies of 3 other badly wounded dogs. Interior rec room. Nauls pats Clark on the shoulder and grins, trying to pick up his spirits. It's okay now, man. It's dead. It's over. You see? Clark turns to him with a childlike smile.
I know Mr. Childs killed it. I saw.
Right, man. Right. Interior small workroom. Norris is going through some maps. McCready is bent over his shoulder. Norris finds the one he's looking for.
Here. This is where they were spending most of their time.
Bennings pokes his head in the room.
Pretty nasty out, Mac. 35 knots.
Yeah, screw it. I'm going up anyway.
Interior main compound, morning. Station manager Garry has joined Blair by the stuck-together bodies. Blair motions to the bandage.
Wasn't anything that got in from the outside. Was that dog, the Norwegian dog.
I just can't comprehend any of this. It was just a dog.
There were no dog, Buana.
A tape McCready showed us this morning.
Couldn't make much of it myself.
I asked him to try to locate the site. Okay with you?
Sure. You think there's a connection?
Maybe.
Exterior chopper, high above the Antarctic expanse. Interior chopper. McCready pilots. Young Palmer and Norris are with him. It's clear, but the winds are troublesome. The ride is a shaky one. Norris refers to their map. He points.
One of their sites would be directly over here.
They aim for a large mountainous wall. As they go up and over, they see a flat glacial expanse. On the surface, an enormous blackened oval shape. Interior U.S. Outpost 31, lab. All of the bodies of the dogs have been brought in. Fuchs stands by as Blair studies through his microscope. Insert, a microscopic sampling of 2 cells. They appear to be much different from each other. They are joined at the ends, but are completing the process of breaking off from each other. On Blair, a disturbed look on his face. He checks his watch as if timing the procedure. Exterior glacier, tracking with McCready, Norris, and Palmer as they walk along the ice. They come to a stop at the edge of a sharp drop. Pull back to reveal the massive black hole about 15 feet beneath the ice. Charred, gnarled, and mangled metal are all that is left of what was once an enormous sphere. McCready's and Norris's eyes meet each other in silence. Palmer is in awe.
Wow.
McCready finds a burnt thermite canister. He and Norris climb down. They move along amongst the wreck. Almost everything but the skeletal superstructure has disintegrated into a fine ashy powder. Norris digs for ice samples at the perimeter of the wreckage, while McCready browses through the center. Palmer continues to marvel as he walks around the oval, atop the ice. McCready returns and kneels down next to Norris as the latter examines a piece of metal.
What was that, Norris?
Magnesium of some type or some kind of strange alloy. And those poor dumb bastards had to go and blow the hell out of it.
So what do you make of it?
You know damn well what we both make of it.
No chance it could have been some new kind of test craft?
Norris shakes his head, no.
Seismic activity has been pushing this area up from way down for a long time. This ice, it was buried in, it's over 100,000 years old.
Palmer calls out, waving them over. Exterior glacier. The two men join Palmer about 50 yards from the oval. A large rectangular chunk has been cut out of the ice. It's 15 feet long, 6 feet wide, and 8 feet deep. McCready kneels down to observe. A beat. A gust of wind picks up the snow at their feet. Cut to interior rec room, night. Fascinated, a few of the men are reviewing the Norwegian videotapes of the findings of the mysterious craft. McCready sits quietly by his chess set, contemplating a large glass of scotch. Clark, less interested than the others, is flipping through the Norwegian nudie magazine. Blair, looking worried, sits off in a corner, pondering the photo of the block of ice and fingering a piece of crumbled up metal brought back from the site. Choules, viewing the tapes, can't quite believe it all.
Okay, now Mac, run this by me again. Thousands of years ago, this rocket ship crashes, right? And the
McCready is not listening.
McCready.
Look, I'm just guessing.
Well, go on.
Interior kitchen. Nauls, about to prepare dinner, scowls as he rushes through the cabinets. Where's that big old steel pot of mine? Damn! He turns to examine the cabinets above the large stove. He spots something in the nearby kitchen trash can. Disgusted, he pulls out a torn and shredded pair of long johns. Interior rec room. McCready theorizes.
So it crashes, and this guy, whoever he is, gets thrown out or walks out, ends up freezing.
I just can't believe this voodoo bullshit. You believe this voodoo bullshit, Blair?
Blair says nothing, lost in thought. Palmer, stoned, a joint dangling from his mouth, is searching for information through stacks of old issues of the National Enquirer and the Star.
These all the time, man. They're falling out of the skies like flies. Government knows all about it. Chariots, God, man. They practically own South America. I mean, they taught the Incas everything they knew.
Cool it, Palmer.
Palmer shakes a magazine at him adamantly.
Read Font. Have you read Font? Get your facts straight.
Clark marvels at a particular photo.
Jesus, why would those guys ever want to leave Norway?
Nauls skates into the room. He shakes the crumpled up pair of long johns in his fist. Which one of you mothers have been tossing his dirty underwear in the kitchen trash? He flings across the room. It lands on McCready's chess set. I want my kitchen clean, germ-free. Nauls spins on his skates and storms off. McCready fetches the strangely shredded underwear and rolls it up while Choules paces.
So, McCready, come on now. These Norwegian dudes come by. Find him, dig him up.
McCready tosses the ball of cloth across the room into a trash bin.
Yeah. They dig him up and cart him back. He gets thawed out, wakes up and scares the shit out of him. They get into one hell of a brawl.
Now, how does this motherfucker wake up after thousands of years in the ice, huh?
I don't know how. Because he's different than we are. Because he's a space guy. What do you want from me anyway? Go ask Blair.
You buy any of this, Blair?
A beat as Blair stares straight ahead, transfixed. He speaks softly, to no one in particular.
It was here. Got to the dog. It was here at this camp.
The men take in his grave countenance.
So what? It's over with.
Blair turns to them. A pause. The men search his face.
Well, what is it?
Interior lab, close on a sheet, as Blair rips it off, exposing the tangled mess of interlocking dogs. Pull back. All the men have gathered. Some of the men settle into chairs, others stand.
Whatever that Norwegian dog was, it was capable of changing its form. When it attacked our dog, it somehow was able to digest or absorb it, and in the process shaped its own cells to imitate our dog's cells exactly. This, for instance, isn't a dog at all. It's an imitation. We got to it before it had time to finish, or...
Finish what?
I think the whole process would have taken an hour, maybe more. And then I suppose both would have changed back to dog form.
Well, that thing in the ice sure weren't no dog.
Of course not. But whenever it was revived, it The thing, probably disoriented and then realized it couldn't survive for long in our atmosphere, but being the incredibly adaptable creatures it was, it tried to become something that could before the Norwegians killed it. It somehow got to the dog.
What do you mean got to the dog?
It was a life form that was able to imitate and reproduce whatever it ate or absorbed, cell for cell.
Silence.
The concept is staggering. I know I don't fully understand it myself.
You're saying that Big Mother in the ice became that dog.
I think we're talking about an organism that could imitate other life forms perfectly. It could have gone on and on. It could have become one dog. It could have become as many dogs as it wanted, and without losing any of its original mass.
You been into child's weed, Blair?
Blair slams his fist on the slab.
Look, I know it's hard to believe.
So what's our problem?
Well, there's still some cell activity. It's not entirely dead yet.
Several of the men nearest the carcasses jump back, knocking over a chair. Cut to exterior compound, night, close on the dog carcasses. Splash, lying on the snow. They're being soaked with gasoline.
You can't do this. You can't burn these remains.
Pull back. Fuchs is beside himself. Childs has the large torch. McCready empties another can on the bodies. Dr. Copper stands nearby.
And the horse you rode it on, Fuchs. Light it up.
Childs lights the tip. Fuchs makes a determined move for the torch.
Well, I'm not going to let this happen.
Childs struggles with him for a beat and then flings him to the ground. Dr. Copper grabs him, preventing him from getting back up. Childs sprays the remains with a jet of flame. Fuchs shakes his head in frustration and disgust.
I just can't believe it. We're going to go down as the biggest bunch of assholes in history.
Oh, fuck history. At least we're going to live to be an old bunch of assholes.
Interior kennel, night. The night feeding. Clark dishes out the food. Blair is taking blood samples from the remaining 3 dogs.
Clark, did you notice anything strange about that dog? Just anything at all. Any little thing.
No, just that he recovered real quick. That night when I found him in the rec room, he had already scrapped off his bandage. Before I put him with the others, I redressed his wound and noticed it had healed up real good.
A beat as Blair stares at Clark.
That night?
Yeah.
What was he doing in the rec room?
Well, after I worked on him, thought I'd let him rest, left the room for a bit. When I came back, he was gone.
Well, where was he? Where did he go?
Don't know. Looked for him for a bit. Couldn't find him.
You're saying he wasn't put into the kennel until the night?
Clark seems uneasy under Blair's intense gaze.
Well, yeah.
Blair stands, his eyes still glued to Clark.
How long were you with the dog? Alone, I mean.
He was hurt bad. Bullet nicked an artery. I don't know, an hour and a half?
Blair's eyes glaze as if in revelation.
What the hell are you looking at me like that for?
Nothing? Nothing at all.
He backs out of the kennel. Interior hallway, compound. Irritated, harassed, station manager Garry moves briskly down the hall. Blair, worried and pale, tries to keep up with him.
Could have gotten to somebody.
Anybody sick?
No, I don't mean infection or disease.
Garry stops at the entrance to the communications room.
Any luck?
Sanchez shrugs.
Couple seconds of an Argentine disco station.
Well, stick with it. I want you at it round the clock. We got to get help in here.
No, you can't let anyone in here. That dog was all over this camp.
Bennings interrupts, entering the hallway, referring to his meteorological chart.
Travel-wise, tomorrow may be okay, but after that, some pretty nasty northeasterly shit's coming in.
God damn fools.
The men from outside come stomping through the hallway.
Listen to me, Garry, please.
If the weather clears enough before we reach anybody, I'm sending you and the doc up to McMurdo.
No, you can't let people leave.
I ain't going anywhere in anything over 40 knots, Garry.
The hell you won't, McReady.
Don't you understand that thing didn't want to become a dog?
Damn you, Blair. You've already got everybody half hysterical around here.
You can't let anybody leave.
I've got 6 dead Norwegians on my hands, a burned up flying saucer, and we've just destroyed the scientific find of our century. Now fuck off!
Close on Blair, ashen-faced, falling silent. As if in a daze, he watches the men as they continue to converse, suspicious, frightened. Cut to exterior compound, night. Pitch black except for the barest of lighting which outlines the building. Wind, the swirl of ice. Interior MacCready's cabin, night. Far away from the others, MacCready sits in his little hovel, putting the final screw into his mended chess set. On the other side of the set, his busty inflatable companion has been propped up in a chair. His sombrero hangs down her back, keeping her in place. Hawaiian music plays from his tape deck.
All set.
He puts down his screwdriver, holds up his glass, and offers a toast with a big grin.
To us.
He clinks the drink he has made for her that rests on her side of the board. He sips. He turns on the machine and makes his first move.
Now go easy on me, Esperanza. Just a beginner.
The set answers for Esperanza. Rook takes bishop at queen 4. Rook takes pawn at queen 2. Rook takes queen at queen 1. Checkmate.
Ah, shit.
He flips open the circuitry panel in disgust. He tosses his screwdriver on the board and grabs his drink, downing it.
Sorry, hon.
He reaches inside his ice bucket, empty.
Never any damn ice around here.
Exterior MacCready's cabin, night. MacCready exits. He swacks at a nearby bank of ice with a small ice pick.
Mexico, Tahiti, they got ice. They got ice coming out of their ears.
The sound of a clanking. He turns his attention. Metal against metal. Strange. MacCready listens. It appears to be coming from far off below, near the camp. MacCready, as he makes his way down with the aid of the steadying ropes, the clanking louder now. He senses the direction. MacCready at the bottom, near the main compound. The sound is stopped. He looks around in the near blackness. A beat. The choppers sit idle in the dark. MacCready approaches. The door to one of the cockpits is slightly ajar. He opens it cautiously. Interior chopper. MacCready slips in. He turns on a flashlight. The controls have been mangled, beaten with something heavy. Bang! MacCready, startled, turns, like the sound of a gun coming from the main compound. Interior compound, main entrance. Confusion, shouts. MacCready enters. He grabs Palmer as he and Bennings rush by.
Hey, what's...
Blair, he's gone berserk.
He's in the radio room, got a gun. Beat on Sanchez something fierce.
Hallway of the radio room entrance. The men are on either side of the open radio room doorway. Garry peeks his head in. A gunshot blast forces him back. Radio room. Sanchez lies on the floor, groaning. Blair holds the gun on the door. He wields a fire axe with the other hand and smashes down on the radio.
Anybody interferes, I'll kill. Nobody's getting in or out of this camp.
Hallway. MacCready has joined the others.
He smashed one of the choppers up good. Childs, go check the other one and the tractor.
Childs is off. Radio room. Blair crunches the axe down once again while keeping an eye on the door.
You think I'm crazy? Fine. Most of you don't know what's going on, but I'm damn well sure some of you do.
Back to the hallway.
Back window. A couple of us could maybe surprise him.
It's too damn dangerous.
Back to radio room.
You think this thing wants to become an animal? Dogs can't make it 1,000 miles to the sea. No seagulls to imitate this time of year. No penguins this far inland. Don't you understand? It wanted to become us.
He brings the axe down hard on the radio. Back to hallway. Childs runs up out of breath.
You got both choppers in the tractor. I don't know how bad yet.
Garry readies his large .357 Magnum.
No, wait a minute. The fuse box.
Norris double times down the hall. MacCready turns the corner and into the rec room. He grabs one of the thick card tables. MacCready returns with the table to the hallway.
Can't you see? If one cell of this thing got out, it could imitate every living thing on Earth. Nothing could stop it. Nothing.
Look, Blair, maybe you're right about this. We've got to be rational. We have to talk this over. I'm unarmed. Coming in.
No, you're not. I don't trust any of you.
Norris reaches the fuse box. He opens it. In the hallway, MacCready readies the table like a shield.
Right. We've all got to stick together.
The lights go. McCready charges into the black room. Blair fires. McCready barrels into him, knocking him to the ground. He pummels him with a right hand and manages to control the gun. The others dive in and pile on. Cut to exterior compound. Heavily clothed, McCready, Fuchs, and Dr. Copper help a dazed Blair to a tool shed some 75 yards from the main compound. Interior tool shed. More spacious than McCready's, very livable. 2 windows. Blair has been placed on the cot. Dr. Copper injects him with a sedative.
Why am I here?
For your own protection, Blair.
Mainly ours.
Exterior shack. Fuchs and McCready nail boards over the windows.
Leave a bit of an opening so we can see out.
Blair's droopy-eyed, heavily drugged features loom up at McCready through the window.
How you doing, old boy?
Oh, who to trust?
I know what you mean, Blair. Trust's a tough thing to come by these days. Just trust in the Lord.
Watch Clark.
What?
Watch him close. Ask him why he didn't kennel the dog.
Blair's face disappears from the window. Cut to exterior compound day. Harsh and gray. Getting very dark as winter takes a stronger hold. Bennings is dumping the trash in a large hole in the snow, which acts as the trash dump. Bennings finishes and drags the empty bins past Palmer and Childs, who are fixing the wounded choppers. Interior radio room. The radio looks a mess. Norris and Sanchez, a bandage wrapped around his head, examines the damage. He's in pain and still looks a little groggy.
I'll see what I can do. But they didn't teach me about fixing these things.
Norris smiles and pats him comfortingly.
They didn't teach you much about working them either.
Interior mess hall, morning. Close on a buffet of eggs, bacon, toast, etc. Pull back. The men help themselves. It's a cramped, elongated room. Dr. Copper approaches Nauls and hands him a capsule.
Put this in Blair's juice just before you take him his tray.
Clark comes running into the room, pallid, out of breath. The men turn to look.
The dogs.
Cut to interior the kennel, empty. Clark and Garry examine the latch of the kennel door.
Doesn't look broken.
No, door was wide open. I know I latched it.
Exterior compound above the underground kennel, close on dogs' tracks in the snow. They lead from the kennel's open stairwell and out onto the ice. All the men have gathered.
All 3 of them took off.
McCready is writing down what appears to be a list on a pad.
How long do you suppose they've been gone?
I haven't seen them since their last feeding. Could be as much as 24 hours.
Couldn't have gotten far in this weather.
Garry and several others turn to McCready quizzically.
You're not thinking of going after them, are you?
Oh, I'm going after him.
What the hell for? Even if Blair's right, they'll just die out there. No food. They're over 1,000 miles from anything.
Coppers aren't going to be ready for days.
McCready hands his list to Bennings.
Get these things out of supply and meet me over by the snowmobiles.
You're not gonna catch them, and one of those with the start they got.
Palmer, how long would it take for you to strap those big 4-cylinder carburetors on?
Oh, I gotcha. Not too long.
I'm gonna move on. Child, come with me.
He puts his arm around Childs and pulls him along. The others watch them walk off, a little bewildered.
Besides, what are you going to do when you catch up to them?
Bennings is reading McCready's list.
Holy shit. Whatever he's gonna do, he ain't fucking around.
Exterior outdoor work area, close on the barrel of the large torch. A fierce stream of flame bursts from its nozzle. Pull back. The stream is shot out some 15 feet. Childs has been modifying it.
And get maybe another 5 or 6 feet out of it.
That's good enough.
Close to Palmer as he works on the snowmobiles. Into frame rolls a wheelbarrow on sleds. A box marked dynamite is its most prominent article. Pull back. Bennings reads off the list of supplies.
All right, box of dynamite, box of thermite, 3 shotguns, box of flares, 2 flare guns, 30 cans gasoline, and a case of alcohol.
Let's load them.
Exterior Antarctica icescape. The 2 vehicles rip across the hard, flat ice, bolstered by the added horsepower. They follow the still visible dog tracks in the snow. Cut to the sun, sliding across the horizon, signaling midday. The snowmobiles whoosh past. Bennings drives the one loaded with supplies. McCready and Childs double up on the other. Cut to McCready. Steadying his binoculars while Childs drives, spots something up ahead. The vehicles slow down and come to a halt. Something lies just ahead of them in the whiteness, in the middle of the dog tracks. The men kneel down by the something. It is the half-eaten remains of a dog. Its hind legs and lower stomach picked clean. Its ripped hide flapping in the wind, its top half missing.
What is it?
McCready follows the line of continuing dog tracks.
Maybe dinner?
Dogs don't eat each other.
I know.
Where's the other half?
Probably the next meal.
McCready moves to the snowmobile and grabs a 2-gallon can of gasoline. He turns to Bennings.
Where those tracks headed?
Nowhere, just straight to the ocean.
A beat as McCready takes this in. He pours the gas over the remains and sets it aflame.
Move.
Childs and Bennings are not that anxious to continue.
They could be hours ahead of us, Mac. Gonna get dark soon, too. It's supposed to be 50 below tonight.
McCready gets in and revs up the engine.
Turn back if you want.
Childs and Bennings return shrugs. Cut to the sun, making its last pass, rolling off the horizon. Only a slight orange hue left. Cut to the snowmobiles, moving slower, positioned on either side of the tracks. The tracks abruptly change directions. The men come to a stop. It's much colder now. Their beards a mask of white powder. McCready surveys the new direction. They're headed toward a far-off ridge of bluffs, large, windswept mounds of ice. Cut to the snowmobiles as they move through a valley of newly formed dunes and tall ice cliffs. The last of the sun obscured, the headlamps are turned on and pointed at the tracks. The men look behind, in front, and from side to side as they proceed cautiously through the maze. Up ahead, McCready spots a dog. It sits, its back to them, unconcerned, heedless of their arrival. It is munching on the other half of the dog carcass. The men stop their vehicles some 20 yards from it. They are hemmed in at the valley's narrowest point. Childs, carrying the torch, and McCready, armed with a thermite bomb, wade awkwardly but carefully toward the animal in their snowshoes. Bennings stands back by the snowmobiles. Childs and McCready spread out some dozen feet from the dog. It continues to pay them no mind, content to chew its food.
Where's the other one?
Bennings surveys the tops of the snow bluffs that encircle them with his flashlight.
Where's your buddy, boy? Huh?
No response. McCready searches the near vicinity with his light. All three are growing uneasy.
Big fly, Childs. Don't let up till he's ash.
Childs turns on the gas and lights the tip. Bennings is still watching the bluffs. Something from beneath the snow reaches up and grabs his feet. He is ripped back down through the hard snow in one incredibly powerful motion. He screams, his head the only thing sticking out of the ice. Childs and McCready turn, confused, unable to see anything but Bennings' screaming head. They rush toward him. McCready stumbles. The sound of a snapping, a crackling to McCready's rear. He freezes, turns back to the dog. Its back is still to him, its coat of hair sticking up like that of a porcupine. It snarls, its face turns slowly toward him, its skin splitting, its mouth ripping open wildly.
Childs!
Childs stops, confused as to who to help first. He notices the dog haunched and ready to spring. He steps back toward McCready. The dog/thing leaps for McCready, an incredible jump of some 20 feet. Childs loses a blast, hitting the dog in midair, the force of the spray knocking it back and tumbling to the ice in flames. McCready throws his thermite canister. It discharges and engulfs the screeching animal in fire. Bennings, howling in pain. The ice underneath him thrashes violently. Childs and McCready stand by helplessly, unable to see what has him or what action to take. Childs moves closer to help.
Get back!
Bennings' head disappears with a sudden jerk through the ice. The ice continues to rumble like boiling water, moving in different directions. Part of Bennings' body pops up in a different area and is just as quickly pulled back down. McCready and Childs watch on in frustration and anger.
What are we gonna do?
How the fuck do I know?
Bennings' head and shoulders then surface near one of the snowmobiles. Something has him, unclear as to what. The jowls of a dog, but huge. Bennings' heavy clothing begins to rip, tear, as if his skin underneath was bulging out. The jowls seem to be absorbing his head. McCready runs for the snowmobile.
Torch him!
But...
He's gone already! Do it!
Childs blasts away. The ice begins to melt as Bennings and whatever catch fire, a screeching. McCready grabs cans of gas from the snowmobiles. Suddenly, a steel-like arachnid-shaped arm shoots out in pain and with incredible force pierces the fiberglass chassis of the snowmobile. MacCready is knocked back. He recovers and dumps cans of gasoline on the writhing mess. He dives and rolls away from the lunging appendage. He and Childs watch on as Bennings and the Thing roar and flame. Behind them, the other dog/thing continues to burn. The screeching, mewing, and gurgling wails on all about them. They look to each other in disbelief, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames, the strident sounds beginning to subside. The sun, its slim orange arc set, signaling the start of the vernal equinox and the beginning of 6 months of darkness. Cut to interior compound rec room. The men are interrogating Clark. He is frazzled and defensive.
I'm telling you, I don't remember leaving the kennel unlatched.
Childs is holding the industrial torch directly in his face.
Bullshit. You left it open so they could get out.
Exterior trash dump. MacCready, waist deep in trash and snow, searches for something. Interior rec room. The interrogation continues.
Would I even have told you they were gone if I had anything to hide?
Why didn't you kennel that dog right away?
I told you I couldn't find... Get that out of my face.
Childs grabs him by the collar and rips him off his chair.
Don't you be telling me.
Nauls steps between them. Lighten your load, sucker. You ain't the judge and executioner around here.
Who you trying to protect, motherfucker? I'm telling you, this SOB could be one of them.
Garry breaks it up, pulling them apart. MacCready enters from the outside. A bundle is tucked under his arm.
Hold on, damn it. We're getting nowhere. If this bit of Blair's about absorbing and imitating is true, then that dog could have gotten to anybody.
And if it got to Clark, Clark could have gotten to anybody.
MacCready moves over to the table.
Theoretically, any of us could be whatever the hell this thing is.
Norris shakes his head, rubbing his chest in slight discomfort.
It's just, too damn wild. I can't believe it.
MacCready pushes his sombrero back over his head.
And well, you can believe it now.
He drops the bundle he had been holding on the table between the men. It's the shredded pair of long johns.
Nauls found this yesterday. It's ripped just like the clothing on the Norwegians we brought back. Same thing was happening to Bennings' clothes when it got him. Seems these things don't imitate clothes, just flesh and bone.
The men look from one another. Silence. MacCready picks it up and examines the label.
Size large. What do you wear, Clark?
Clark stews.
So what?
I wear a size large too.
Yes, so do I. So do most of us.
The uneasiness in the room grows.
Doubt if it got to more than one or two of us. But it got to someone. Somebody in this room ain't what he appears to be.
A pause as all eyes travel from man to man.
Well, what are we going to do?
Norris turns to Dr. Copper and Fuchs.
Can there be some kind of test to find out who's what?
Serum test, possibly.
Right, why not?
It's a simple blood typing test.
What's that?
As I was about to explain, it's a simple blood typing test. This thing's blood chemistry is different from ours. Basically, we mix someone's blood with uncontaminated human blood. If we don't get the proper serum reaction, then that person isn't human.
Whose uncontaminated blood we gonna use?
We've got blood plasma in storage.
How long will it take for you to prepare this?
A couple of hours.
We'll get to it.
Garry unhinges a key from his belt and hands it to Dr. Copper. Dr. Copper and Fuchs head for the infirmary.
How'd that thing get to the dogs? I thought we stopped it in time.
Copper thinks they swallowed pieces of it during the fight.
And that was enough?
Garry, the rest of you, come here.
Interior infirmary. The men rush in. Fuchs and Copper stand by the open plasma storage refrigerator. The inside is a mess of dried blood. It has been ripped open. Copper is ghastly pale.
Somebody got to the blood. Sabotaged it.
Oh my God. A horrified silence.
Was it broken into?
No. Somebody opened it, closed it, and then locked it.
Sanchez twitches, terrified.
Who's got access to it?
I guess I'm the only one.
And I've got the only key.
Several pairs of eyes turn to Garry.
That test have worked.
I think so.
Somebody else sure as hell thought so.
Who else could have used that key?
No one. I gave it to Cooper when he needed it.
Could anyone else have gotten it from you?
I don't see how. When I'm finished, I return it right away.
When was the last time you used it?
A day or so ago, I guess.
Garry senses the nervous and inquiring eyes on him.
I suppose, well, it's possible someone might have lifted it from me, but...
That key ring of yours is always hooked to your belt. Now, how could somebody get to it without you knowing?
Look, I haven't been near that refrigerator.
Silence as the men continue to stare. Sanchez is perspiring.
Cooper's the only one who has any business with it.
The eyes shift from Garry to Copper.
Now, wait a second. Garry, you've been in here on several occasions.
And the doc thought of the test.
So what? Is that supposed to leave him in the clear? Bullshit.
Sanchez bolts out the door. Stunned for a beat, the others chase after him.
Hey, Sanchez!
Sanchez, in terror, runs at top speed through the narrow corridors, opening and shutting doors. The others are in pursuit. They shout for him to stop. Cut to Sanchez as he reaches a small armory. A glass case set into the wall. A half a dozen rarely used guns are inside. He tries the handle. Locked. He hears the clamor of feet and voices as the others are nearing. He breaks the glass and grabs a shotgun, then a box of shells. He frantically tries to load, but is too nervous. The others arrive at the end of the hallway. Garry pulls his handgun and points.
Put that down!
No.
I'll put this right through your head.
No one doubts Gary's sincerity.
You guys going to let him give orders? I mean, he could be one of those things.
The others regard Garry tensely, no one oblivious to the fact that Sanchez just might be right.
Put it away, Sanchez. Just put it away.
Still trembling, he tosses the shells back into the broken case, leans the gun against the wall and begins to sob. Nauls skates over to comfort him. The men watch as Garry lowers his gun. He turns to them.
I don't know about Copper, but I didn't go near that plasma. But I guess you'll all rest easier if someone else is in charge.
He hands his gun to Norris.
Can't see anyone objecting to you, Norris. Sorry, gentlemen. Don't think I'll be up to it. Haven't been feeling well lately.
Childs goes for the gun.
I'll take it.
McCready beats him to it.
Maybe we should get someone a bit more even-tempered, Childs.
Childs glares.
Any objections?
Roving eyes pass about the hallway. Nobody is sure who to trust. McCready seems as good as any. Interior rec room. The men have gathered to discuss plans. Furtive and untrustworthy glances are passed around the room.
From what we know, this thing likes to go one-on-one. So we stick together as much as possible. In twos and threes.
Childs points to Garry, Dr. Copper, and Clark.
What do we do about those three?
We got morphine, don't we?
Fuchs nods.
We'll keep them loaded. Stash them here in the rec room and watch them for 24 hours.
Morphine. I was pretty close to that dog too.
Palmer is ignored.
We should sleep in shifts.
Right. Half of us awake at all times.
How are we going to try and find out who's who?
Can you think of any other tests?
I'll try. I could sure use Cooper's help, though.
You can 86 that thought right now.
Dr. Copper eyes his accuser solemnly.
Also, when this thing turns, it turns slowly at first. I think we can handle it in that state, but if it ever got to full power, When I saw the Norwegian camp, I don't know. Probably taken an hour or more to get like that. So no matter what anybody's doing, we all return to this room every 20 minutes. Anybody gone longer than that? Anybody trying to leave? Kill them.
Cut to exterior compound, darkness. It's the dead of winter. 6 months of darkness ahead. Palmer fights the cold as he works dismantling the engine of the helicopter. He frowns, searching for something.
That Magneto. Can't find a darn thing around here anymore.
Interior rec room. Copper, Clark, and Garry sit moodily together on a couch. Norris awkwardly prepares to give them their injections. He's new at this. Childs stands guard with his torch. Dr. Copper offers to help.
I'll do it. You're going to break the needle in my arm.
No, Doc. He's doing a real fine job.
Exterior compound. McCready and Sanchez are foraging through the trash dump.
Look for shoes, too. And burn cloth.
Interior radio room. Norris has been dismantling the radio. He rubs at his chest as he disengages the headset. Interior hallway. Following Nauls as he skates through the labyrinth. Checking waste bins, pausing to look behind shelves in any obscure hiding place. McCready passes him, coming the other way. That thing's too smart to be hiding any more of its clothes, McCready.
Just keep looking.
Interior lab. Fuchs is poring over a book. Others lie open. McCready pokes his in the lab.
How's it going?
Nothing yet, but McCready, I've been thinking. If our dog's changed by swallowing parts of that other one, we better see to it that everyone prepares their own food and we eat out of cans.
Gotcha.
Exterior compound. A siren goes off, signaling the end of a 20-minute period. Sanchez pulls himself out of the trash dump. Palmer carries a large part of a helicopter engine toward the compound. Interior compound. The hallway near the supply storage cubicle. McCready holds the door open as Palmer makes his way to unlocking the heavy helicopter part. Childs passes by from the other direction.
Childs, where's that Magneto from Chopper 1?
Ain't it there?
He passes by.
No, it ain't there. Would I be asking if it were there?
Move it, Palmer.
Interior supply storage room. Palmer sets down the heavy part. Norris follows him inside with a bundle of radio gear. They move back out into the hallway, and McCready locks the door behind them. Hallway. The three move down the hall toward their appointed rendezvous at the rec room.
Start taking apart the snowmobiles next, huh?
Interior kitchen. Cramped. Several of the men are preparing their food, opening cans, heating them in pots. Exterior compound. Nauls warily approaches Blair's tool shed with a tray of food. He hears a pounding from within. I got your goodies, super dude. He peeks in through the opening in the boarded-up window. Blair is nailing himself in from the inside. He looks pretty crazed. What you doing?
Nobody's getting in here. You can tell them all that.
Well, who the hell you think wants to get in there with you? Nauls slides the tray in the slot. It's immediately shoved back out and topples onto the ice. Some of the food has splashed on Nauls' heavy coat. Now, why did you go and...
And I don't want any more food with sedatives in it. I know what you're up to. Don't think I don't. And if anyone tries to get in here, I've got rope. I'll hang myself before it gets to me.
You promise? Crazy white scientist motherfucker. Exterior compound. Palmer works on the snowmobile. Sanchez resumes searching through the trash. Interior balloon tower. McCready slashes into the huge uninflated weather balloons, rendering them useless. Tanks of helium and hydrogen are stacked nearby. Interior kitchen. Nauls does the dishes. His cassette plays in the background. Interior rec room. Childs continues guarding the three men.
Gotta go to the can, Childs.
Childs follows him to the other end of the room.
Be quick.
Clark walks to the head. Childs moves back to the middle of the room. As the guard, he is much more vulnerable in this position, being split between his prisoners. The lights begin to flicker. The soft purr of the generator begins to fade.
Oh no.
The lights go out. Nauls calls from the kitchen. Childs, that a fuse?
No, generator. You got the auxiliary box just off the kitchen. Get to it. Where's the damn flashlight? You fellas okay over there?
Dr. Copper giggles in the dark.
Cut that out, Copper. Nauls, what's taking you?
I'm working and nothing's happening.
That's impossible, man. Okay, Clark, out of the John, where I can see you.
It's shorted out or something.
Clark, come on out here.
Childs lights the tip of his torch, allowing him a strong candlelight. Garry is no longer in the room.
Where's Garry?
Dr. Copper looks numbly at the empty seat next to him. Childs finds the portable siren and blares it. Exterior compound. McCready, Palmer, and Sanchez heed the call and head for the compound. Interior rec room. Childs jerks his head around in different directions.
Where are you, Garry? Don't move an inch, Copper. Nauls, bring me a goddamn flashlight.
Interior kitchen. Pitch black. Somebody's taken it. I can't find it.
Clark, you want me to come in after you?
Interior hallway. McCready, Sanchez, and Palmer come in from the outside. They bump into each other, trying to get their bearings from the lack of light. Palmer, the only one who seems to have one, turns on his flashlight.
What happened?
McCready, that you? McCready, that you?
Yeah, it is.
It's the generator. I think no power.
Let's get down there.
McCready.
What?
Garry's missing.
Shit. Hang on.
Gee, thanks.
Interior generator room. Palmer and McCready are stumbling down the stairs. McCready turns around and looks.
Where's Sanchez?
Both look around. Sanchez is gone. Palmer's light finds the motionless generator. He examines.
Fuel pump. It's gone. You gotta get up to supply, Mac. If we don't get this thing started soon, it'll freeze up on us and we'll never get it going.
McCready dashes upstairs into the darkness. Interior hallway. The lab door is opened. Fuchs, holding a small candle, walks out. As he passes, the shoulder of a man springs into frame. Interior generator room. Palmer is feverishly working underneath the generator on his back. Interior rec room. The temperature continues to drop rapidly. Childs swats himself to keep warm while still keeping an eye on Dr. Copper and the rest of the room. Interior hallway. McCready rushes out of the supply room with a fuel pump and bumps into somebody.
Who is that?
The silhouette moves on down the hallway.
Sanchez? Hey, who?
Hey, where the hell is that pump?
Interior generator room. McCready holds the flashlight for Palmer. Their breath puffs of white smoke.
Somebody definitely messed with it.
Are we gonna make it?
I hope so. Another 10, 15 minutes. What I don't get is...
The sound of a screeching from somewhere in the compound. The two men's faces are locked in fear. Cut to interior rec room. The generator has been repaired. The lights within the compound are back on. Grim and tense. Everyone is present but Fuchs. Eyes flit from man to man. Palmer, Nauls, and Sanchez are spread out about the room, keeping as much distance as possible from the rest. Norris and Childs are tying the doctor, Clark, and Garry to the couch. McCready prepares several makeshift blowtorches as he kneels on the ground.
Where were the flashlights?
Yeah, screw the flashlights. Where the hell were you?
Tons of stuff's been missing around here. Magnetos, cables, wire.
Kitchen things, too.
Fuchs. Hear him? Huh?
No answer as the men's faces roam the room. Childs glares at Garry as he begins to tie him in.
Where'd you go?
Gary's groggy features stare blankly.
Said where? Where did you go?
It was dark. Find a light.
You lying bastard.
Garry struggles to his feet, affronted.
I rather don't like your tone.
He grabs Childs by the collar.
You sit back down.
Childs wails on him with a right hand. Both go tumbling over the couch. McCready and Norris dive in, breaking it up.
Enough!
McCready, furious, pulls Childs away. Norris, breathing heavily from the activity, massages his chest. The strong, stormy winds overhead batter the roofing. McCready glances up. He and Childs release each other.
That storm's gonna start ripping any minute now. We don't have much time.
He thrusts one of the blowtorches hard into Childs' stomach.
Gotta find Fuchs. When we find him, we kill him.
Why?
Because he's one of those things that we gotta get to before he changes. Nauls, you and Childs, and I'll go check the outside tanks.
He tosses torches to Sanchez and Palmer.
Sanchez, you and Palmer search the inside.
I ain't going with Sanchez.
Sanchez snaps his head towards Palmer. Palmer looks at the others.
I ain't going with him. I'll go with Childs. Well, screw you, man. I ain't going with you.
Well, who says I want you going with me?
All right, cut the bullshit. All right, Sanchez, you come with us. Norris, you stay here. Any of them move. Try it. And if you hear anything at all, you let loose the siren. You'll be back here in 20 minutes regardless. And everybody, watch whoever you're with. Real close.
The men survey each other.
Let's move.
Cut to exterior compound, night. McCready and Nauls, wearing their snowshoes and using flares for light, pull themselves along the steadying rope that leads to Blair's shed. They're careful to keep an eye on each other as they move along. Sanchez heads off in the direction of another shack. Cut to interior compound, hallway. One of the many doors creak open. Childs and Palmer stealthily move into the next corridor. Palmer falls a few steps behind, mumbling to himself.
What do we ever do to these things anyway?
Childs freezes and snaps his head around facing Palmer, a beat.
What?
Don't walk behind me.
Another beat.
Right.
He moves to the other side of the wall, parallel with Childs. They continue on, skimming along the sides of the corridor in plain view of one another. Cut to exterior compound. Nauls and McCready arrive at Blair's shack. They peer in through the spaces between the boards. A weak light burns as Blair is seated eating out of a can. A hangman's noose dangles from the ceiling nearby.
Hey, Blair!
Blair jumps in fear, spilling his can.
Has Fuchs been out here?
Blair approaches the boarded-up window. He looks haggard and afraid.
Changed my mind. I'd like to come back inside. I don't want to stay out here anymore. Funny things. There are funny things out here.
Have you come across Fuchs?
Fuchs? No, it's not Fuchs. You must let me back in. I won't harm anyone. I promise.
We'll see.
He and Nauls trudge off. Blair shouts after them.
I promise. I'm much better now. I'll be good. I'm all better. Don't leave me here.
Interior rec room. Norris continues his watch on the sedated trio. He anxiously tries to keep an eye on the various entrances behind and in front of him. He rubs his chest in pain.
I'm getting worried about you. You ought to have a checkup.
Let's just not get worried about anything just now.
Oh, after all this mess.
After all this mess.
Exterior compound, the slope to McCready's shack. The winds are thick and vicious now. McCready and Nauls pull themselves along the rope, fighting their way up the slope. A violent gust sends McCready's body horizontal, but still hanging onto the rope. The wind slaps him back down. His flare and torch tumble back towards Nauls. Nauls saves the torch from rolling down the hill. McCready, lying vulnerable, watches Nauls pull his way toward him. He tenses. Nauls reaches him. A beat. He hands him back his torch. Relieved, McCready pulls himself upright. Interior compound, kitchen, close on thick power cables that line the wall. They have been torn apart. Childs and Palmer examine.
Auxiliary light cables been cut?
Cut. Bullshit. They've been pulled apart.
Exterior McCready's shack as they reach the top. The remaining flare their only light, very dark. They stand on either side of the door. McCready shoves it open, pitch black inside. McCready flips the light switch. Doesn't work. Interior shack. They enter, haunched, torches ready. The place a mess. The wind's as strong as on the outside. The single flare illuminating the ceiling. Almost all of the corrugated steel roofing is gone, as if ripped off. Where's the roof? McCready stares up incredulous as they advance to the room. The storm do that?
Couldn't be possible. Wait a ton and a half.
Nauls kicks over a chair. A naked, fleshy object bounds high into the air. Nauls thrusts out his torch, catching the breasts of the inflatable woman. She pops and is sucked out through the hole in the roof. Nauls tries to catch his breath. God damn white women. Interior compound. Underground, rickety corridor. Palmer stands by as Childs undoes the many locks to the room that houses his plants. One by one. Palmer twists his head in every which direction, nervous. Childs pulls open the heavy door. A flush of snow and wind push them back. They wedge their bodies at the entrance to the lightless room.
Oh, my babies.
They enter. The light from the hall exposes the completely smashed-in window high above the plants. The plants look frozen.
Somebody broke in.
Who would go and do...
Saddened, angry, Childs goes to check the damage to his plants. Palmer, his face set in horror, yanks him back.
Childs,
Let go of me.
don't get near them. The plants, they're alive. Those things can imitate anything.
What's it gonna do, being a plant?
Palmer readies his small torch.
We gotta burn him.
Now hold on, dumb.
Palmer sprays them with flame. Childs pushes him to the ground and tries to swat out the fire.
Stupid son of a...
Palmer, his mouth agape with terror, screams and points to the closing door to their rear. Childs whirls. Fuchs, one arm outstretched, swings into view. An axe, embedded deep into his chest, pins his frozen body to the inside of the door. Interior rec room. Norris, startled by the scream, turns on the siren. Cut to interior plant room. Sanchez has joined Childs and Palmer. The body of Fuchs is still pinned to the door. Sanchez tries to wrench the axe loose. It's too deeply embedded and won't budge.
Whoever put this through him
Sanchez observes Child's hulking frame and adds pointedly,
is one badass and strong mother.
No one's that strong, boy.
Interior passageway, tracking with the three men, opening and closing doors as they make their way back to the rec room. They keep their distance from each other, watching each other while they walk.
Why didn't it imitate Fuchs? Isn't that its numbered to get more recruits?
Wasn't enough time. Generator was out, but 30 minutes? Takes the bastards an hour, maybe 2 to absorb somebody.
Why Fuchs?
He was working on a test. Fuchs must have been onto something. These bastards got scared and got rid of him. Hey, where's...
Interior compound, close on Palmer's face, shutting down a passageway.
McCready!
Close on Childs, bellowing.
Nauls, McCready.
Exterior compound. A strong drift wind streams snow across the ground, obscuring everything but the very top of the buildings. The siren screams. Interior rec room. Rigid, immobile faces, listening to the storm overhead.
How long they been out now?
45 minutes.
Silence as the uneasy eyes measure one another.
Better start closing off the outside hatchways.
Various angles of the compound. Childs, Sanchez, and Palmer, closing off and bolting the entrances to the camp.
All of you, come here.
Interior compound main hallway, point of view, the men. Through the fogged-up windows, a figure can be seen approaching the main compound. It pulls and drags its way along the guide rope, fighting the gale force winds. Cut to the men, weapons in hand, huddle at the main doorway. They unbolt it. Sleet and hail send Nauls rolling in from the outside. The men force the door back and lock it. The weary Nauls kneels on the floor and gasps for air. The others surround him.
Where's McCready?
Nauls weighs each of them ominously while digging down underneath his heavy jacket. I cut him loose of the line up by his shack.
Cut him loose.
When we were up poking around his place, I found this. He pulls out a thick bundle of heavy clothing. It's mutilated and partially burned. He holds out the jacket to show the inside collar. Close on name tag, it reads R.J. McCready. The men as they examine in a hush. It was stashed in his old coal furnace. Wind must have dislodged it. I don't think he saw me find it. The men continue to examine in various states of disbelief. I made sure I got ahead of him on the tow line on the way back. Cut him loose.
McCready.
He's one of them.
When do you think he got to him? Could have been anytime, anywhere.
If it did get to him.
Hey, look, man.
When the lights went out.
Would have been a perfect time.
Right. Garry was missing. And Sanchez. Fuck you, Palmer.
Childs and Norris separate them.
This is just what it wants, to pit us against each other.
A pounding at the door sends the men jerking backward. Nauls scampers to his feet. They tense.
Open up!
No answer as the men surround the door, their weapons ready. Fear.
Open up! Greedy! Come on, damn it, the tow line snapped. Been crawling around like a seal out here.
Bullshit! He's gotta know damn well I cut it. The men keep their voices low.
Let's open.
Hell no.
More pounding.
Do you think he's changed into one of those things?
He hasn't had enough time.
Nothing human could have made it back here in this weather without a guideline.
Everybody, I'm half frostbit.
Let's open it now.
Why he's so damn anxious to let him in here.
He's so close. Maybe our best chance to blow him away.
No, just let him freeze out there.
What if we're wrong about him?
Then we're wrong.
The muffled breaking of a window down the hall. The men turn.
The supply window! What are we going to...
All right. All right. We've got no choice now.
Interior supply room, pitch black. McCready's voice is heard cursing as he appears to be stumbling around looking for a light switch. He responds to the muffled voices at the door.
What's going on out there?
Hallway. Palmer stands by as Childs tries the knob. Locked.
Damn it, he's got the keys.
Childs rips a fire axe off the wall and begins hacking away at the door. Interior supply room.
What are you doing?
You're a dead man, McCready. Or a dead whatever the hell you are.
McCready begins to rummage through the supplies in the darkness.
You found your clothes, the ones you tried to burn.
What clothes?
You've been made, McCready.
Childs chops away. McCready desperately continues rummaging through the supplies.
Someone's trying to mark me, you bastard, trying to frame me.
Hallway. Childs cautions to Palmer as he prepares for one last blow.
Move in slow now.
Crunch, the door gives. The men move in, their blowtorches ready. They freeze. McCready stands before them holding a lighted flare. His hair and clothing are covered with snow, his cheeks and nose blackened by frostbite. Tucked under his arm is an entire box of dynamite. He holds the flare dangerously close to the open box.
Don't mess with me. Whole camp goes.
He appears to mean it. They don't seem anxious to test him.
Put those torches on the floor and back off.
They do. He follows them out into the hallway. The men step backwards carefully.
Back way off.
They heed, retreating further down the hall. McCready glances behind him.
Where's the rest?
Nauls and Norris, who have silently crept into the supply window, come flying through the hacked-up door and barrel into McCready, both going straight for the flare. McCready spins Nauls off and rips into Norris, sending him crashing violently into the wall. Nauls tackles McCready's legs, pulling him to the floor. The others rush him. McCready, still in control of the dynamite and flare, bellows.
Oh, help me, I made it!
They skid to a halt. Nauls crawls away quickly. It's cool, man. We ain't near you, man. Just stay cool.
Yeah, man, really. Just relax.
He touches me. We go.
Norris, lying on the floor, coughs as if gasping for breath. He quivers for a moment, then is still. Nauls crawls over to him and shakes him a beat. I don't think he's breathing. Nauls listens to Norris's chest. McCready stands.
Go inside the dock. Get him in here. Bring the others too. Now no one gets out of my sight.
Cut to interior infirmary. Norris's body is plopped on the examination table. Copper stumbles and is steadied by some of the men. McCready continues to keep his distance. Copper places an oxygen mask over Norris's face. He then rips open his shirt.
You sweethearts had yourself a little trial. I just may have to kill you on general principle, Nauls.
Copper begins swathing Norris's chest with a gelatin substance.
Ever occurred to the jury that anybody could have gotten this one of my clothes and stuck them up?
You ain't buying that.
Damn it, quit the bickering and give me a hand. Feel that fibrillator over here.
Sanchez pushes over the portable fibrillator. Copper climbs up on the table and straddles Norris's chest. Unnoticed, Clark paws the contents of the instrument tray behind his back.
Palmer, turn on that oxygen and hold the mask over his face. Childs, grab his shoulders.
They do so. Copper holds electrical prongs over Norris's chest.
You're going to have to sleep sometime.
Quiet down. Turn that thing on.
Sanchez depresses the on button.
Now hold him.
Real light sleeper, Childs.
Enough, McReady.
Dr. Copper presses the prongs onto Norris's chest and shoots a bolt of current. Norris's body heaves upward, a slight crackling sound and an odd chirp through the oxygen mask.
Again. More current this time. Sanchez.
Bzzz, several remote jolts from the prongs. Clark's hand has found a scalpel. He gently lifts it out, bringing it to his side.
Anyone tries to wake me.
Damn you, McReady.
Norris's body begins bounding up, more crackling and popping. His chest begins to break up and spread. The mask pops off, a hideous mewing escaping from Norris's distorted mouth. The men jump back incredulous. Dr. Copper scrambles off his chest and flops to the floor.
God, what?
They watch on in stunned horror as the thing that was Norris begins to change, to spread awkwardly on the slab, its clothes tearing. A shoe splits in half and falls to the floor, exposing the beginnings of a talon. McCready charges toward it, shooing the men off.
Get out of the way!
He unloads with a stream of flame. The body writhes in pain, belching and hissing. The slab catches fire. It struggles, lurches for the floor, straightens up, and moves a few feet. A black and yellow substance rips and spurts to the floor. Norris's body collapses on the fibrillating machine in flame. Extinguishers are ripped from the walls and put to work. McCready watches the smoking particles of ooze in fascination as they twitch and mew on the floor. Within seconds, the fire is out. The men stand around in awe as they look upon the thing that was once Norris. McCready continues to observe the small particles, their tiny squeals abating into silence. Interior rec room. McCready, still carrying the industrial torch, has maneuvered all the men into the room. He holds Garry's .44. He has untaped the explosives from his chest and laid them on the nearby table next to two more boxes of dynamite.
What you got in mind, McCready?
We'll test.
Time to test.
I'm sure a lot of you already know.
He tosses a ream of steel cable and some rope to Palmer.
Palmer, you and Copper tie everyone down. Real tight.
What for?
For your health.
Let's rush him. He's not going to blow us all up.
Damn if I won't.
You ain't tying me up.
Then I'll have to kill you.
Then kill me.
McCready points the .44 at Childs' head.
I mean it.
McCready cocks his gun. Childs holds his ground.
I guess you do.
A beat. Clark springs for McCready, scalpel raised. McCready spins and fires 3 shots point blank, the force of the charges sending Clark flying backwards. The others, themselves about to pounce, stop, as McCready whirls the torch and gun back toward them. Cut to the men, being tied securely to couches and chairs.
Tie up Clark, too.
He's dead.
Yeah, Norris looked pretty dead himself. Bulls don't kill these things.
McCready turns on a Bunsen burner while he cuts the rubber covering off an electrical cord, exposing the copper wire. All the while, he keeps his eyes on the men.
I should have jumped his ass.
Now, Copper, you tie Palmer up.
Copper starts to tie Palmer to the small couch next to Childs and Garry.
We're going to draw a little bit of everyone's blood.
What are you going to do, drink it?
Watching Norris in there gave me the idea that every bit of this bastard's a whole. Every piece of you is a self-sufficient animal into itself. A man bleed is just tissue. The blood from one of you things won't obey. The newly formed individual with a built-in desire to protect its own life. When attacked, your blood will try and survive. Crawl away from a hot meal, say.
Sanchez is grimacing as Dr. Copper pinches a scalpel to his thumb and collects a small portion of his blood in a dish. All the men have been tied up. Palmer, Childs, and Garry on the small couch. The others, including the lifeless corpse of Clark, in chairs. Copper returns the plate to the table and sets it down in line with the other plates of blood that he's collected. The names of each man have been scribbled onto the plates. McCready slides the doctor a fresh plate.
Now you.
Copper cuts his thumb. His blood dribbles into the plate. He stands nervously for a beat.
Slide it back here.
Copper pushes it towards McCready.
Step away.
Copper steps backward, moisture beginning to collect on his brow. McCready begins to heat the copper wire over the Bunsen burner. The men watch intently. The wire begins to glow. McCready points the torch directly at the doctor, both of them perspiring. McCready lifts the glowing wire from the flame. The doctor is still. McCready slowly torches the wire to the doctor's plate. A soft hiss. McCready heats it again and tries once more. The same soft hiss. McCready and the doctor both let out a sigh.
I guess you're okay.
Thank you.
Didn't think you used the defibrillator on Norris if you were one of them.
He hands Copper the torch.
Watch them.
He cuts himself with a scalpel and begins collecting his own blood.
I'll show you what you already know.
He heats the wire and puts it to his plate, the same harmless hissing. All eyes continue to watch as he tries again. The same result. Childs mumbles.
What a bullshit.
We'll see. Let's try Clark.
He heats the wire and lays it on Clark's dish, the hissing.
So Clark was human, huh?
McCready nods.
So that makes you a murderer.
McCready glances over the group.
Palmer now.
He sets Palmer's plate in front of him and heats the wire.
Pure nonsense. This won't prove a damn thing.
Thought you'd feel that way, Garry. You're the only one who had gotten to that blood plasma. Do you last?
Screech, the blood howls, trying to crawl off the plate. Palmer bolts forward with incredible force, racing for McCready. His face splitting, his mouth roaring, dragging the couch, Childs and Garry with him. He smashes into McCready, knocking him over the table. It's all happened too fast. Copper tries to get off a burst of flame. The ever-changing Palmer breaks his bonds and leaps on the doctor. The others sit helpless, struggling at their bindings. McCready dives on Palmer's back, and the three go rolling to the floor, screeching, crackling. McCready pounds viciously on Palmer's head. A powerful, shirt-splitting arm sends him skidding across the floor. Copper momentarily has control of the torch. Just as he positions it, Palmer's mouth splits from his chin to his forehead and engulfs the entirety of the doctor's head. The big torch slaps against the wall. Palmer bounds to his feet, wrapping his arms around the dangling, struggling body of Dr. Copper. The men are screaming hysterically. McCready tries to fire up the bruised torch. Busted, won't work. Frustrated, he charges up behind Palmer and begins hammering the thick steel instrument over his head. The shirt on Palmer's back erupts in McCready's face, splitting and ripping wildly, exposing the beginnings of yet another orifice. A blackened, iron-strong tongue lunges outward. Stunned, McCready manages to elude it, diving for the top of the table by the boxes of dynamite. McCready lights the fuse of a thick roll and bounds from the table. Palmer awkwardly spins in circles, swinging the doctor's body like a propeller blade, struggling to keep on balance as he advances on McCready. The second orifice, spitting and snarling as it continues to take form. McCready waits until Palmer's back spins around, facing him. Only 2 yards away, McCready flings his lit roll into the ever-evolving second mouth and leaps onto the couch, covering Childs and Garry with his body. A muffled boom as the swallowed explosive ignites from deep within Palmer and sends his flesh splattering all over the room. McCready rolls away from Childs and Garry as fast as he can. Cut to McCready, perspiring profusely. His hand trembling slightly, prepares to continue the test. He heats the wire. The men are pouring sweat, white-knuckled. One of the smaller torches is pointed at Nauls. He closes his eyes. McCready places the heated wire into his plate. Hiss! McCready exhales. Nauls opens his eyes. McCready unties Nauls with one hand while the torch stays glued to the others. McCready heats the wire once again. Both he and Nauls have torches aimed at Sanchez. Sanchez is near tears. The wire is dipped into the plate. Hiss! Sanchez breaks down and sobs. Childs sits stoically while he watches the preparations for his turn.
Let's do it, Buana.
Nauls and Sanchez take aim 5 yards away. Fierce, determined. The wire comes off the flame into the plate, the harmless hissing. The muscles in Child's face melt into a sigh.
Motherfucker.
All eyes snap towards station manager Garry. Child, suddenly realizing who is sitting next to him, squirms.
Get me the hell away from... Cut me loose, damn it!
Nauls rips away his bindings. The other two stand guard. Child scrambles off the couch and onto the floor. Garry stares grimly ahead. Child soaks his clothing with a can of gasoline. He is then surrounded. The room tenses. Adrenaline pumps. Breathing halts. The burner, the torches, the wire, the plate, Gary's face. Hiss. McCready tries it again. Hiss. The men breathe. Their torches are lowered. Nauls throws his on the floor. Sanchez and Childs flop down in chairs. McCready wipes his face. A long silence. Sanchez weeps quietly with relief.
I know you gentlemen have been through a lot. But when you find the time, I'd rather not spend the rest of the winter tied to this damn couch. A
beat. Child starts to giggle. The strain on McCready's jaw begins to lessen. Garry sits catatonic. Nauls scowls at Child's uncontrollable laughter. The infectious rasping causes McCready a slight smile as he looks up, taking comfort in the sound of the raging Antarctic wind vibrating the roof. Nauls, untying Garry, grumbles at Childs. Shut the damn hell up. Childs wipes his eyes and grins over towards McCready. His smile faded. McCready is now stone-faced. Childs' grin goes stale in sudden realization.
Blair.
Exterior compound, night. The wind rumbles. The storm is at its peak. McCready, Childs, and Nauls, guided by their flares, pull themselves along the steadying rope headed for Blair's shack. Blair's shack. The door is wide open. They pause by the entrance, trying to balance against the wind. They enter. Interior Blair's shack. Empty. A few of the floorboards are loosened. They pull them up. They stare down into a large hole beneath the planking. Something is down there. They pull up more boards. The hole is some 15 feet deep. Its dimensions are the same as the shack. Its space is almost completely taken up by some strange metallic object. Crudely fashioned, a patchwork job, but streamlined. Sheets of corrugated steel are visible, but cut apart and welded into the desired shapes. The object appears to be unfinished. What is it?
Everything that's been missing.
Spaceship of some kind?
Smart son of a bitch. Put it together piece by piece.
Where was he trying to go?
Any place but here.
McCready pulls out a dozen tightly wrapped sticks of dynamite.
He ain't gonna make it.
Far off amidst the howling gale, the screeching, the men jump. McCready lights the fuse as they make it to the exit. He tosses it in. Exterior compound along the rope. The explosion echoes behind them. The men pull along. Their heads jerk in circles, searching into the blackness. Some 20 yards to their rear, something swishes down, severing the line. The wind sends the men tumbling along the ice. Choules loosens the line and is blown away, rolling out of sight. McCready and Nauls have lost their torches. They pull feverishly along the ground, trying to make it to the compound. The screeching closes in behind them. McCready loses his grip on the rope and is blown towards the main building. He crawls along, looking for an opening. Nauls slides near the outside entrance to the dog kennel. He climbs down through the open stairwell. Interior plant room. McCready has found the broken window. He rolls through it, landing on the frozen plants below. Something smashes at the glass above his head, trying to get in. He sprints for the door. Fuchs' frozen body is still pinned to it with the axe. McCready grapples with the stiff torso which blocks the knob. He finally gets it open and lets himself out, slamming and locking the door from the hall. Fuchs' body swings eerily back and forth. Interior hallway. McCready charges up the stairs from the plant room. He zooms down the twisting corridors, opening and closing doors. He rounds a bend and crashes into Nauls coming the other way. Cut to interior rec room, close on Sanchez, pouring gasoline into empty bottles, preparing Molotov cocktails. Garry is connecting an electrical device. Wires attached to two portable generators. McCready appears to be injecting something into empty contact capsules. The men work feverishly. Nauls rushes in with another box of dynamite. What about Childs?
Forget about Childs. He's over.
Nauls begins cutting the wicks off the dynamite.
Make them short. They'll go off quicker if we need to use them.
The wind belts into the roofing overhead. Garry sets the wiring to the main doorway. McCready begins blocking off one of the other entrances with a large computer.
What if it doesn't come?
It'll come. It needs us. We're the only thing left to imitate. Give me a hand.
They block off a door with two heavy electrical games.
You and Nauls gotta block off the west side bunks, the mess hall, and the kitchen.
Are you crazy? He might be inside already.
Chance we gotta take. I'm gonna force him to come down the east side of the door we rigged.
Nauls starts lacing his skates.
He might just wait us out.
I'm gonna blow the generator when you get back. He'll have to come for us. Or freeze. We've got portable heaters. We'll last longer.
Sanchez and Nauls start to leave.
Hold it.
He dispenses the capsules.
Sodium cyanide. Place them between our cheeks and gums. This thing can't hit anything that's dead.
A grim silence.
Gets a hold of you, bite down. It's supposed to be fast and painless. Now move.
Cut to interior corridor. Sanchez and Nauls inch their way through. Interior rec room. McCready rips linen, soaks the strips in gas, and stuffs them in the Molotov bottles. Garry tests the current on the door. Popping, sparks, smoke.
It's good.
1,000 volts. Should be enough.
Interior kitchen. Nauls pushes a stove, reinforcing a locked door. 5 yards away, Sanchez maneuvers the refrigerator in front of another outlet. Sanchez hears a quiet, purring, bubbling sound. He turns to Nauls.
You hear that?
Hear what? A blaring. They whip their attention to stereo speakers on either side of the kitchen. Rock music streams out, top volume. Interior rec room. The same loud music. McCready and Garry look to the three speakers attached to the walls. McCready yells his incomprehension to Garry. Garry tries to respond. Their voices drowned out. Interior hallway. Empty. Another of the stereo speakers that line the walls thunders. Interior kitchen. Nauls, in sudden realization, screams over the den and points back in the direction they came. It's got into the pub. It's turned on the stereo.
What?
It's in between us and them. How are we going to get back?
Can't hear you.
Interior rec room. McCready rips the speaker off the wall.
What are they doing out there?
The music is now subdued within the room, but continues booming throughout the camp. Nauls' scream can be barely heard.
What's he saying?
Interior kitchen. Nauls the top of his lungs. McCready, we've been cut off! A sharp, red-like, talon-like fingernail pierces the top of the door above Nauls' head. It saws downward quickly. Black goo drips through the slit, the sawing obscured by the music. Sanchez, eyes bulging, points. Nauls turns. A claw rips through the wood. Nauls dives to the floor. In the opposite direction, behind Sanchez, another arm splits through the door and the refrigerator. It extends itself 5 feet and yanks Sanchez back as if he were a puppet. Sanchez struggles, looking imploringly at Nauls. He bites down on his capsule. Nauls takes off like a speed skater. Interior rec room. The sound of the screeching over the music.
Gotta get to the generator.
He opens the door, looks down the hall. No one. The speakers, blaring music. Nauls, full speed down the maze. Left, right, totally reckless. He hits a straightaway. Sanchez's body, from out of nowhere, blasts through the hallway wall directly in Nauls' path. A thick arm pins the body to the other side. Unable to stop, Nauls skids out of control, banging into the sides of the wall, his cyanide capsule flying out of his mouth. Whatever the rest of it is, it starts to crumble through the wall. Nauls dives over the arm, somersaults to his feet, and takes off. Interior main hall. McCready, running, spots Nauls careening out of a turn heading towards him. Get back!
The generator!
Screw the generator! Nauls blazes past him. McCready hears the snarls and screeches heading his way. He streaks after Nauls. Interior rec room. They make it in. They lock the door. McCready tries to catch his breath. Nauls shakes and pants. God, Sanchez! World War III wouldn't mess with this fucker. Can go through walls, and it's like all over the place.
Calm down and get in your position.
Position my ass. Garry fiddles with the 2 generators.
I'm gonna bump this up as much as I can.
Boulder Dam might do it. The loud music in the compound is turned off. McCready shuts off the lights. The men spread out. Silence. Cut to interior rec room. The men watch all the doors. Dead silence. Dark. Whispers.
How long has it been?
A little over 2 hours.
Maybe it's not coming.
We go after him.
Bet the last place you ever go. The sound of a door opening and closing, far off. Another creaking door is opened. A rustling, still far off. McCready and Nauls spread further apart. The soft bubbling cooling sound. A slight scratch at the door. Garry's hand tightens around the generator switches. The scratching gets more pronounced. McCready cautions Garry with a whisper.
Wait.
The door begins to pound from the outside. Nauls and McCready light 2 cocktails each. The door booms. The room's foundations shake. The ceiling quivers. The gas bombs are cocked. From the roof, the thing roars down into their midst. Stunned, the men stumble back. McCready throws his gas bomb. Nauls the same. For a moment, it stands silhouetted in flame, enormous, grotesque. Garry bolts for the main door. The thing's tongue spirals from his mouth and spears him. The good 2/3 of its body follows its tongue and engulfs Garry by the door. Another leg slaps Nauls to the ground. McCready dodges still another appendage, dives on the generators, and throws the switch. The current rips through the door. Garry dies instantly. One of the thing's talons, still caught in the door, sends it writhing in pain. It literally rips the door from its latchings and pounds it to the ground, trying to shake it loose. Nauls hobbles, scrambles out of the opening. McCready dives through the window and out into the storm. Cut to interior compound, hall. The distant sound of a motor. Nauls, battered and bloodied, his leg apparently broken, crawls along the ground. Another sound, a bubbling and gurgling, is heard well to his rear, but closing. The terror forces him to drag faster, oblivious to the pain. He reaches the bathroom stall, crawls in, locks it. The gurgling nears. Leaning on the toilet seat, he looks about himself frantically. The presence pauses at the door, a scratching. Nauls paws, rips at a cracked and weathered slab of wood, cutting his fingers as he tries to break it off the siding. A strong blow begins to breach the stall door. Nauls finally unhinges the piece of wood, brings the jagged end to one side of his throat, and rips. Interior lab wall. The motorized rumbling nears. The wall seems to explode. The tractor barrels into the lab, its enormous shovel scooper tearing half the room to shreds. McCready drives. His eyes glint like a wild man's. He looks stark, raving mad. His frostbite, now in an advanced stage, resembles black war paint. He clenches a stick of dynamite between his teeth like a buccaneer's cutlass. 2 large compressed air tanks have been tied together at the top and are draped around his neck. They are marked hydrogen. They are used for the weather balloons. He pulls the tractor to a stop, yanks the stick from his mouth, grins and bellows.
All right, creep. It's you and me now. Be on your toes. We're going to do a little remodeling.
McCready guns it through the next wall and into the infirmary. Medical equipment goes flying. The machine is powerful, the prefabricated walls buckling under its force. Interior compound. A trail of viscous yellow ooze leads around a bend. Boom! McCready rams into the mess hall, sweeping away tables, chairs. He sings aloud the lyrics of some Mexican song. All the while he keeps his eyes on everything. Through the kitchen, the foundation crumbling, he sings on. Narrow passageway. Gurgling and hissing, a taloned arm slinks around a corner in retreat.
Chime in if you know the words, old boy.
McCready plows through several more rooms before ending up in the pub area. He backs it up and retrieves a bottle of liquor from the bar.
Like whiskey? Come on, join me for a drink. Good for you. Bangs on your chest.
He takes a drink and rams through another wall. Interior rec room. The tractor blazes into the rec room. McCready parks it directly in front of the hole in the roof created by the thing when it surprised them earlier.
Gas.
He pulls off the heavy high tanks and drips them over the tractor. As he talks, his eyes move like a hawk, passing from roof to doorways to rubble. Wind and ice bristle through the gaping holes, stinging McCready with the cold. He winces at his mittenless, blackened fingers.
Sweetheart, it's gonna get mighty cold in here soon. Better make your move. Hell, I'm only one person.
He takes a swig from his bottle.
You know you're bugged because we ruined your trip, right? It's a little toy you had there.
A slight tremor perks his eyes and ears. He looks up through the hole, then around. He lights a lighter and cups it in his hand near the stick of dynamite in his lap.
Your real hang-up is your looks.
A stronger tremor, the adrenaline pumps.
Attaboy. I know you're around.
The floor shakes. McCready stands, his head whirling around the room.
Come on, fucker!
The tractor inches up off the ground. McCready falls forward and looks straight down through the chassis and into the vile and grinning face below. A claw flashes up, splitting the steering wheel but missing his face. He depresses the ignition, bolting the tractor forward 10 feet. He jumps, hanging onto the edge of the hole in the ceiling. The thing's face and arms burst through the metal plating of the tractor. The reaching claws just miss him as he pulls himself through. Exterior roof. He lights his fuse, drops in the stick, turns, and runs. Half of the thing's grotesque and angular torso bolts up through the hole, howling in fury. An appendage sprints outward and winds around McCready's jacket, hissing like acid into the fabric. An immense explosion. The hydrogen tanks send a white fireball 50 feet into the sky, the thing's body disintegrating almost immediately. The force of the blast sweeps McCready off the roof. He and the severed appendage crash to the hard ice in flames. He rolls over and over, trying to smother the fire and tear off the insidious limb. Cut to interior camp, a ruin. One half of it burnt almost to the ground. McCready wears a thick blanket which covers him like a shroud from his shoulders to the floor. He walks bent over and in much pain, trying to blow out the fire with an extinguisher. It's futile. He gives up. Cut to interior pub area, mostly untouched by the fire, but like most of the rest of the camp, exposed to the outside. The storm has settled considerably. Close on McCready, lighting a cigar. His hands are heavily wrapped. He pours himself a drink. A puffy white hand, missing 2 fingers, enters the frame and whirls a startled McCready around. It's Choules. White and black blotches over his frostbitten face.
Did you kill it?
He looks as weak as McCready, a beat.
I think so.
What do you mean you think so?
Both men speak guardedly and stare at each other suspiciously.
Yeah. I got it. Pretty mean frostbite.
Choules steps back, keeping his distance. He indicates his puffy white hand.
It'll turn black again soon enough. Then I guess I'll be losing the whole thing. I think my toes are already gone.
McCready, carrying the bottle and glass, limps over and sits down behind a gaming table. There's a chess set and several decks of cards. The 2 men continue to eye each other.
So you're the only one who made it.
McCready begins setting up a non-electronic chessboard.
The only one.
Fire's got the temperatures way up all over the camp. Won't last long, though.
Neither will we.
Maybe we should try and fix the radio, try and get some help.
Maybe we shouldn't.
Then we'll never make it.
McCready puffs on his cigar. He relieves a small blowtorch from under the table and places it beside him on top.
Maybe we shouldn't make it.
If you're worried about anything, let's take that blood test of yours.
Do we have any surprises for each other? Shouldn't be in any condition to do anything about it. You play chess?
They regard each other for a moment. Childs painfully sits down across from McCready.
I guess I'll be learning.
McCready grins and hands the bottle to Childs. Childs smiles back and takes a healthy swig. Exterior compound. The fires smolder on. Bright embers dance in the blackness, pushed by the soughing wind. Fade out. The end.
And that was the 1980s classic, The Thing. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you at the next one.